And welcome into the Monday edition of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, the beautiful and talented Elijah Campbell here with you today on this Monday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Joe Rexrode, what a weekend it was. How we doing?
It was good. It was a wild one. It was a wild one, that is for sure. Lot of stuff happened. A lot of stuff was said.
A lot of stuff was said. A lot of stuff happened for sure. Elijah, how we doing? What's going on? You're looking quite pink today.
I know, a little sunburnt, but other than that, I feel fantastic. You know, you get sunburned enough and you're out in the river all day. You go to sleep by 9 o'clock, you feel like gold at 4 a.m. the next morning.
That's right. But the Chris Middleton show last night for the Milwaukee Bucks,
that was
2-1 in that series now. Joe Rexrode. I don't know if this was
I
called
this
shot or not, but you did say Atlanta's not winning another game in this series after game one. So far, have been two pretty good performances by Milwaukee since then.
That was one of my called shots. Bucks in 5.
There you go.
I feel pretty good about it right now.
Yeah, it's
I
looking
do.
good.
They're just better. You know, I mean, Atlanta is – I love Atlanta because I love Trae Young, but they're not – they're overachieving right now. So I think we're headed toward the long-awaited, long-desired Milwaukee-Phoenix matchup in the NBA Finals.
Oh, yes. Looking very good on that front.
Hey, I'm excited about it.
I would love to watch it. Yeah, Phoenix up 3-1 in their series. Milwaukee up 2-1 in their series against the Hawks. The Stanley Cup final is set as well. Barry Trotz and company, they held it close. They covered the plus 1.5.
Darn them.
1-0 final for Tampa Bay in Game 7. But those pesky Tampa Bay Lightning back in the Stanley Cup final once again, much to the delight of NHL fans all over.
I mean, Vasilevsky, you know, that guy is –
It's absurd.
So what, he's had a shutout in every
4 consecutive series, he has closed the door on that team with a shutout. It's NHL record. Every series since the Stanley Cup final last year.
I mean,
it's unbelievable.
It's just not fair that team has that goalie.
Yeah. So the Stanley Cup final set on that front. We'll see if Shea Weber and company can get it done against Tampa Bay. That begins today down in Tampa, Florida. So going to be a lot of interested eyes around here to see if Shea Weber and the Montreal Canadiens can get it done against Tampa Bay. But, Joe, the top story of the weekend here locally, what a crazy weekend it was for the Vandy boys. We did not anticipate after we left the show on Friday that things were going to transpire in the manner in which they did. A lot to get to. I guess let's start with Friday. I was driving home from our show and made a couple stops along the way, and I get back in the car, and I hear Darren McFarland of Darren, Donick, and Chase just talking about the game and saying that he's got a buddy that's an NC State guy and was telling him that a sickness had been moving around the locker room, sickness/COVID, and his text to Darren apparently was congrats to Vandy. And Darren's like, okay, well, what does that mean? And the guys were just kind of talking through that as to what we could see with the game time. I believe was scheduled to be at 1 o'clock on Friday, and all of a sudden it comes out that game's not starting at 1 o'clock. It gets pushed back an hour, and you look out on the field in kind of the pregame warm-ups with the anthem being sung. There are 13 guys out there for NC State. They've got 9 position players, one of which is a pitcher, and Sam Highfill, which, by the way, thought he played pretty well for the most part.
He does it all.
And you've got 4 bullpen guys. So a very limited roster for NC State on Friday. For a while there, I mean, they hung around, looked pretty good against Vanderbilt. Highfill, I think, had 3 hits in the game. But Vanderbilt ultimately able to get it done on Friday. And then you thought, okay, well, what does this mean? Are your tests going to come back if you're NC State and maybe you have more guys available to you the next day? Could there be less guys available? What's going to happen on that front? And then into the wee hours Saturday morning, it comes out that NC State's not going to play. Vanderbilt moves on, and they are in the College World Series finals once again. We'll get to kind of the reaction of that coming up here in just a few minutes. But, Joe, just your initial reaction to a crazy 24 to 36 hours for the Vandy boys over the weekend on Friday and Saturday.
Unbelievable. What as you're telling me this, I'm actually going back through my mentions because, yeah, like you said, I mean, I think Darren was the first person to talk about this. I did get a tweet during our show from someone, I'll find it, who was like, have you heard about NC State and the COVID stuff? Like during our show. And I was just like, nah, I haven't heard. You know, I don't know. But Hey, shout out to that guy. But, yeah, there's been a lot more reporting around it. Kendall Rogers, who does a great job covering college baseball for D1Baseball.com, he went through the entire timeline of the situation, and I mean it's wild and it's wacky. And look, I hate it. I mean, my first reaction is I hate it for NC State.
Yep.
You know, and that's not going to change. You have to separate the stupid from, the.
Which there's a lot of that going on.
There's a lot of
this weekend.
stupid, but I mean it sucks for that team. Now, it's also, I mean, it is one of those things that you knew going in, and so there was a certain amount of risk. Their AD Boo Corrigan put out a statement basically saying a lot of guys were waiting until the end of the season to get vaccinated, and I think some of them had COVID. So, but I mean, the teams. I mean, this is going to come up more and more, and that's one thing to keep in mind about this. Now, we've already seen other teams that have been bounced from NCAA tournaments: VCU hoops, Michigan hockey, a couple others. But this is going to be. We're moving out of the COVID era of like last year, right? But there's still COVID protocols for these teams that don't get vaccinated, and there are going to be, like, we're going to have a feel for college and pro, which teams are vaccinated and which teams are not vaccinated. And it's just this, you open yourself up to this because you're not even, like, if you're vaccinated to a certain point, you don't get tested. So, I mean, I know you can also look at the whole thing and say, well, it all doesn't quite add up. And I understand that, but these were the rules going in, and it's just wild how it all went down. Speaking of the Friday situation in particular, I did not come in here intending to just go off on Jared, but I have to real quick. He tweeted out, I wouldn't start Kumar Rocker today.
Oh, yeah.
Like, seriously, like, of all Jared's takes, like that's such a miss, because I could have sworn to you right then. You know what that was? And it's a way higher level, but that was Pontus Aberg scoring a goal when you lost Ryan Johansson. There is a psychology that absolutely comes into play in these things.
Sure.
Where it's like, oh, everybody thinks we're screwed, and we got nobody. Well, guess what? Sam Highfield's going to play some first base, and he's going to hit some line drives off Kumar Rocker. I mean,
apparently Sam Highfield should have been hitting in the 3-hole for NC State all year.
I guess so, man. I mean, based on the last week, he's the greatest baseball player in college baseball history, from what I can tell. But it was just, I was not shocked that ragtag group, and they still had like 3 of their best hitters. They were missing a couple.
Had some issues in the
ones.
field. Apparently, making the transition from third base to shortstop is very difficult.
Right. Yeah, and it took a while, but that finally showed itself. But I was not surprised at all that they battled like they did, and good for them. But honestly, like I mean, the crazy thing is, Cliff Avent, their coach, is talking that day like, he's hopeful, like they're getting everybody back, or a lot of people back, and instead you're just out of there. And I mean, the NCAA with the 2:10 a.m. press release.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
And then the best, did you see their tweet to NC State the next day? Congrats on a great season.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it.
I mean, it's just incredible, the consistency with the NCAA, just looking so stupid. And just, again, like, all you have to do, you don't have to name names. I mean, Kendall Rogers, anybody and he made this a free story at D1Baseball.com. He has the whole timeline of everything that went down. He talked to, a lot of NC State sources and different sources. But NCAA can sit there and answer questions for 10 minutes and lay this out without naming specific players. I mean, there's nothing to hide behind here other than we're just going to cower in the corner and and let everybody scream about stuff. I mean, it's typical, but I feel for NC State.
Yeah, and Kumar Rocker talked about it yesterday as well. Tim Corbin talked about it as well. I mean, you got to feel for NC State in this situation, but that's the hand they've been dealt at this point. Joe, there's a whole lot of stupid to kind of sift through over the weekend. Now, I did what I normally do on weekends, and that is not pay a whole lot of attention to Twitter. So I didn't see all of it, but I did see enough of it, and including a comment made from Tim Corbin on Friday after their win Friday. Says, quote, "We got a positive outcome, and at this point, I don't care what it looks like. It doesn't matter. We're still here. We're still playing, and that's all that matters." Which, again, Friday when he said that, when you think you're playing on Saturday against NC State once again. Well, the NC State fans have taken this quote by Tim Corbin, and have run with it about, I guess they thought he said it after, and the positive outcome part of it as well from the COVID test. And Tim Corbin at the moment is public enemy number one in Raleigh, North Carolina. Never mind, he said it on Friday in talking about the game. What do you want Tim Corbin to say there? Like, yeah, well, we probably should have just forfeited because they couldn't play.
Right.
Well, and it was just unbelievable, the reaction to that quote, which really, I mean, it was a very nothing quote. Got a great outcome. There you go.
Yeah, and it was part of a bigger quote. I mean, he was asked about basically playing against a team like that when you have to switch at the last minute, you don't know who's pitching, all that stuff, and he's been talking about winning the game. So whoever started the whole let's tweet this out after, I mean, they must have known, right? I mean, I'm sure they found the video from Friday, and then, here's confirmation. This guy, I don't even remember his name. The problem here, too, is like there's media people who are getting into this, and just you can't contribute to the stupid. Come on. I mean, like, and then this one guy deleted all his tweets because I guess he realized how stupid it was at some point. But I wrote a column today or yesterday, but it's up today at The Athletic about that. But also just the whole. It's just incredible. You get like one message board comment, which is really what this was, about how like Corbin demanded that they test more players and stuff. Which, first of all, Corbin was furious on Friday because no one told him anything. He's got Rocker out warming up, and as anybody who knows baseball, I mean, that's not ideal. You got your guy getting warm, getting that arm going, and then it's like
he's not out there just casually tossing either. Like, you're getting warmed up,
right,
ready to pitch.
And now it's like, pull him back, and like, what is happening? He was. So if anyone saw Tim Corbin angry, because he got no information. It was, I demand that you test them all again. I mean, it's just so stupid. And then again, the problem with this, and this goes to my rant for later too, but the problem is like the question of like, do you give it oxygen or do you ignore it? But this got major play. It got major play to the point that the whole Vanderbilt camp knew about it, and it's like all it takes is one person to just throw some crap out there, and it's incredible. But it's funny because I was reading Kendall Rogers' timeline, on the very well reported. I'm like, wait a minute, you missed the one part there about Tim Corbin, making sure that everybody got triple tested,
Yes.
But so now it's like, NC State fans burning Vanderbilt shirts.
Corbin in there holding a nasal swab, ready to get things
That's
done.
Right. I'm going to test you myself.
Come here. I will test you now, NC State players. Just so dumb. There's a lot of dumb this weekend with the Vanderbilt NC State situation. We'll continue to unpack that on the other side. Taking your thoughts as well on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Elijah Campbell here with you on this Monday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Streaming live on Periscope, on Twitch, and on YouTube as well. Taking your thoughts on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Joe, we were discussing during the break, one of the favorite hobbies of some on our text line is to come up with a new name for you on almost a daily basis. Keith texts in a lot, and he's been really good. Jadavion Rexcroak has been created. There have been many things that have been done. Thinking back to last year in the playoffs, Joe Rule as well, that you were introduced as on a press conference. You had a new one this week, caught by closed captioning on the television. It was maybe the greatest of all time.
Yeah, our friend Ryan McGee, who's out there in Omaha, sent me a screenshot. So I guess he was maybe in the hotel watching the press conference yesterday with Tim Corbin. So this is by far way down the list of issues I have with the NCAA in Omaha. It's really not an issue at all, but I am on the press conferences Joe Rexrod consistently.
Joe Rexrod.
There's a lot of not recognizing that an E at the end means a long vowel. That's okay. First day of school, I'm used to
Apparently, this is a very common problem with you.
Yeah, it's fine. But the closed captioning on Ryan McGee's television turned it to next question from Joe Restaurant. That is a new one. Rexrod. Now, if they had said my name correctly, it wouldn't have happened, right?
No.
I don't know. I'd be interested to know what that word might be.
Yes.
But Joe Restaurant.
Restaurant.
I'm loving it. I think I might have to make this like my Twitter picture or something.
I think so.
It's
Elijah,
like Tim Corbin looking like exasperated at having to take another question about NC State's crap, and then Joe Restaurant.
Our next question will be from Joe Restaurant. Joe, go ahead.
That's fantastic.
Like you were pranking the presser. Like that's exactly what that sounds like.
Well, I told Ryan, I'm actually more of a 24-hour buffet, but I'll take it.
That could look. You got a lot of nicknames that I enjoy. That could be my favorite. I think Joe Restaurant may need to be a permanent thing.
That might have staying power.
That sounds like a Food Network show.
It does.
Like drive-ins with Joe
Restaurant. Congratulations. At least it was a productive weekend on some fronts.
Yeah. Closed
Restaurant.
captioning is, underrated.
It is something else.
It can be very entertaining.
That is true. Joe Rexrode, a nice shout out on the broadcast on Friday as well. Little national TV love all weekend long for Joe Rexrode here on the program. Joe, we kind of been unpacking the reaction to the NC State situation with Vanderbilt over the weekend. NC State forced to withdraw from the tournament. Vanderbilt advances to the College World Series final yet again. We've gone through the reaction to Tim Corbin. Then NC State fans started burning the shirt, kind of, sort of, and then the police stepped in and broke that part of it up. Some interesting reaction from Mississippi State as well. Apparently Mississippi State is now America's team going up against Vanderbilt. A lot of interesting stuff coming out in the aftermath, and Vanderbilt now apparently is the villain heading into the College World Series final against Mississippi State.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like there's some of that built in. The funny thing is, this matchup. It's a great matchup of especially fan bases.
Oh, yeah.
I think clearly. Although there's nothing that can totally replace the in-state thing, the Tennessee Vanderbilt thing, and a lot of Tennessee fans are weighing in too on all this stuff. And I think Tennessee fans, like a lot of people, but maybe especially them and some others in the SEC, are sick of Vanderbilt being here. So there's that built in. Mississippi State, for whatever reason, I don't know that it's necessarily the program, but it's certainly the fan base that is that's the most vocal by far on the whole Vanderbilt, financial aid situation where they're like, everybody's on full scholarship, even though, again, guys like Rocker and Leiter would not even be close to eligible for that stuff. But regardless, that's been their big, we just plug along with our 11.7 scholarship. Now there's Vanderbilt, I don't know, so there's a Vanderbilt guy who posts they have some new system where they all get 15,000 more on top of their stuff. And it's okay, you know what? It's a never-ending discussion, but that's all been pushed to the side because of all this. But I think there is some, Vanderbilt already is, are they Alabama? Are they something like that out there in the college baseball world? They've been to 5 of the last 10 College World Series. They're going for the third. title in that time. Is Corbin unlikable? I mean, like, Vanderbilt fans love Corbin.
Sure.
I feel like general sports people or like media people really like him, but is he a guy who, rubs people the wrong way? I mean, I don't know.
I don't think so. I mean, maybe after this to some, yeah, but he didn't do anything.
Right. Well,
that's the most amazing part.
Yeah, he was Satan in Raleigh, North Carolina. Yeah. But I mean,
by the way, a little sidebar: these fans in Raleigh, North Carolina, they've been something. Between the Carolina Hurricanes and now with this has been an interesting revelation for me the last couple of months. Of there are some lunatics in Raleigh, North Carolina that I've noticed. Oh my goodness! I mean, there are lunatics everywhere, but I guess I didn't really think of Raleigh, North Carolina as this rabid fan base that some of the takes during the Carolina series were something else, and then you toss on NC State as well. Interesting time last couple of months in Raleigh, North Carolina.
The Canes Wolfpack fan.
Man.
Well, the thing about NC State is people from there will tell you, like, it's probably as big a fan base as any. Like, they are the fourth most discussed, right? Or third most, I guess, in that area. But even in the state sometimes, like Wake Forest gets more. I mean, but they have a huge and very long-suffering fan base. So, I mean, you can kind of think of it a little bit in terms of like Tennessee, where you get this big athletic department, a lot of resources, huge, a lot of fan base, big public school, huge alumni base, and haven't had success. And they were right there. I mean, this team, I don't know if they were going to finish the job. We see that a lot too, where you almost get there. Maybe they didn't have enough. I don't know.
Especially when Leiter was going to be on the mound Saturday. We'll never know.
No. Yeah, we haven't even gotten into the sad loss of Pedicure, which I think we should. No.
We need to come up with something else. Yeah.
Like I said, I was told not 100% because it's like, you know what, Leiter's going to have some say, but the plan absolutely was for Leiter to be pitching it. And that's another thing for Mississippi State fans, by the way. So they're angry.
Oh, they're yeah.
Because they're like, well, so I went back and forth with the guy on Twitter yesterday. He's like, oh, now Rocker and Leiter are both going to be there. I'm like, first of all, okay, Rocker pitched Friday, man. Like, this has nothing to do with Rocker.
No.
Okay? Now, I think it has nothing to do with Leiter either. I don't think they were going to pitch him at all. Maybe an inning, but even then you're messing up Monday. I think they were going to totally hold him back.
I will go to my grave saying Leiter was going to pitch on Saturday.
I know. I'm reporting right now. The plan was not that. Now, like I said, no one's saying anything 100% because, like does Jack Leiter just demand or beg to pitch? I don't think it was going to happen. But either way, it does certainly help Vanderbilt's bullpen that they didn't have.
Sure.
To. Certainly, like Luke Murphy was not going to be able to pitch in this game Saturday, and now they're all fine. So from that perspective, and then some of those guys would have been probably, a McIlvain, a Maldonado would have used a bunch of innings Saturday and would have been
Now he's completely good to go.
Right. They still would have that day off Sunday, but still, you're in a much better shape bullpen-wise. So from that perspective, it stinks for Mississippi State. Just the entire Vanderbilt villain thing is interesting, and how much of it is this right here versus how much of it was already sort of building. I don't know. First of all, the college baseball community. It's not. It's smaller.
It is
than college football, college basketball, whatever. Is Vanderbilt viewed as like the evil empire?
Well, I think just like anything else, like if they win this year, that's back-to-back national titles. That's 3 since 2014. Yeah, people are going to start to not like them. It's just you see that when people start to win. I think there's a natural element of that. Is Tim Corbin a part of that? Like, I think there are people out there that legitimately despise Nick Saban. Like, I think there are people out there that legitimately despise Coach K or Calipari, whatever you want to say. Like you said, it's different in college baseball because the fan bases are not quite as big. But I do think people will get a little Tim Corbin Vanderbilt fatigue after a while. Not here, obviously, but around the college baseball landscape. I think there will be some that view them that way, yes.
Well, here for Tennessee fans, though.
Well, sure.
A lot of Tennessee fans around here. I don't think they love Corbin.
I don't think so either.
It's kind of fun.
That's why Vitello hanging around makes it even better.
But so I mean, I wrote about this Mississippi State senator who's like, it's America
Yeah.
against Vanderbilt. Yeah. Is that how people is this how people are looking at it because they got vaccinated? Is it because they got vaccinated and they happen to be the team that's in the way?
Maybe so.
Is it like because
I'm
Vanderbilt?
going to doubt it's America against Vanderbilt.
Yeah. That's a lot of cowbell. I mean,
I was about to say,
I'm always for more cowbell. But that's a lot of cowbell.
I mean, what a matchup we're about to have. The Whistler and the cowbell in the same place. It's going to be something else.
The biggest winner of this series, the TV mute button.
Yes, could be.
Well, there's going to be a lot more, I think, Mississippi State fans there. I wonder if there'll be any attempt at cowbowl. Joe Restaurant says.
Yes.
Any attempt at cowbell muting of the whistling?
Maybe so.
Like when the whistler tries to whistle, does someone get in his face with a bing, bing, bing with the cowbell? I don't know.
Start shaking that thing. Maybe so. Could be something. We'll find out tonight. Starting at 6 o'clock, game 1 between Vanderbilt and Mississippi State. The third time in the past 10 finals that it's an all-SEC matchup. Most recent one was in 2017 when Florida took down LSU. We'll continue to discuss Vanderbilt in the College World Series final when we come back. Taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025, The Game. Go to theGameNashville.com to check out Nashville's best deals. Deals happening now include a $50 Bad Axe Throwing Nashville gift card for only $25, a buy one, get one free for Beach Bend Park and Splash Lagoon, and $20 Grain and Berry gift cards for only $10. Get yours now while they last at theGameNashville.com. We'll come back in, Robby and Rexrode, here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Talking Vanderbilt to the College World Series final, taking your thoughts on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. David on the text line says, how many from the NCAA would have to be put in witness protection if they pulled this off versus Bama in the college football playoffs? I guess referring to the NC State situation where they're now out and Vanderbilt advances to the College World Series final.
Wait. What about Bama, though? I didn't understand.
Saying if this happened, if the situation, I guess, with NC State happened with Bama, or Bama got to the final because somebody else got pulled out, how many people from the NCAA would have to be put in witness protection? Yeah,
right. Well, no doubt. I mean, again, the NCAA in this, it's just look. I mean, everything is written. I mean, you can look up like the protocols, and it's essentially like if you're vaccinated to a certain point, like you're not going to get tested. Obviously, the way this all went down prompted testing. And remember, I mean, a key to go back on is that Monday. Avent in his post-game presser was like, we got a couple guys who were real sick. This was like, it wasn't just like randomly let's test people. I mean, they had guys who were sick, who were out, who, they had to deal with. And then that prompted testing, and then you go from there. And there's some vaccinated guys who tested positive. So, I mean, it's fodder for all kinds of stuff. And, with Avent in particular, like, look, is it reality that, like, all this stuff becomes political? Yes. But, like, if someone just asks, like, about vaccination and you're like, I don't talk about politics, like, but, I mean, really, on its face, that's not what it is. It's just like, are you vaccinated or not? I mean, but we can't separate these things. He is, by the way. I mean, that's one thing that came out of Kendall Rogers' story. He got vaccinated in March. The AD said those guys some of them were waiting. But look, when that happens, I mean, you are open to this stuff, and everyone knows that. I mean, this is one of those things where it almost kind of, even for me, I was like, gosh, I almost forgotten about even testing and protocols because I'm not there doing it, but they're still doing all this stuff constantly. And the people who are in this arena know that the vaccinated teams are pretty much exempt and the others aren't, and there's a risk.
So you've thrown out an interesting question here, which I think is fascinating to try to get to the bottom of. We know what happened between Vanderbilt and Stanford. Vanderbilt gets the comeback win on the wild pitch, and it looked like Stanford was right on the doorstep of punching their ticket to playing against NC State. If that would have happened, if Vanderbilt didn't come back, and this exact scenario happens with Stanford going to the College World Series final instead of Vanderbilt, do you think the reaction is this strong? What do you think about that? I think that's interesting to think about. Obviously, Stanford has not been there as much as Vanderbilt has as of late. What do you think? Would the reaction be the same? Is this a Vanderbilt thing, or is this a purely mad at the situation with NC State type of thing?
Well, first of all, I give credit. Gentry Estes threw that out there, too, over the weekend, and it's a good question. I suspect it would not be the same. And, again, I think it just goes back to some of the built-in stuff with Vanderbilt. Corbin, I think Corbin is just going to rub people the wrong way who he beats. Yeah. So, I mean, and obviously all the scholarship stuff and all that. But, I suspect that it would not be quite the same. Who knows? Maybe. I mean, burning the Stanford shirts, I don't know. I mean, the NC State fans needed, you need something. Everyone hates the NCAA, so they needed like another villain. You know? They needed someone else. It had to be that the other side did something to you also, on top of just the ridiculous, just awful outcome for this team that was on such a great run. So maybe there'd be some, but I don't think it would be quite the same. Another hypothetical, by the way, what if NC State had won Friday?
Yeah. Like, is it over?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The answer is yes. The answer is Mississippi State is your national championship right now. Is your national champion right now. So, yeah.
That would go over well.
Yeah. Well, it'd go over well for See, that's the one when I heard that, I was like, gosh, giving up all that TV revenue? And that's one thing the NCAA, I mean, the show must go on because the thing is, I mean, look, if some of the urgency here, isn't it, to have your TV slots, right? I mean, couldn't you?
Yeah.
NC State asked to have a doubleheader on Saturday, and they were denied. Well, there's I mean, why? Why is it so important? I know you have a stadium, like it's an event, so it's not easy to. But could you not have waited a few days? In theory,
I would think.
But then apparently, you're just gonna get rid of all of it, and who knows, man? I mean, trying to find reason in some of this stuff is hard.
It is hard. Now we've had, and you brought up Tennessee fans earlier. A lot of this was going on over the weekend, and from college baseball fans as a whole, like, is this national championship, regardless of if it's Mississippi State, or especially though if it's Vanderbilt, is there an asterisk on this based on NC State was the hot team? They obviously, with the sickness and the issues on Friday, having 13 people available, that obviously affects the way that you play. They were rolling. They got past Arkansas. They beat Vanderbilt already with Sam Highfill on the mound. There are some that say if Vanderbilt goes on to win the national title now, there's an asterisk next to it. What do you think of that? How much do you buy into maybe this title being a little bit less legitimate, given everything we've seen now with NC State and what happened with them in their locker room?
So you mentioned this, and I noticed. Well, I guess it was a couple days ago. Our Caroline Fenton threw up a poll of Vandy wins College World Series. We were looking at, and I'm looking at that. I'm like, maybe a little bit of a LSU alum who has a little bit of a problem with the Corbstern too. Away, a win is a win, 64%, 64.2. Yes, they didn't earn it 35-8. Will there be an asterisk? It just depends. The asterisk is in the eye of the beholder.
Yep.
Some people will put it on there. I mean, the bottom line is, whenever Tim Corbin retires, if they win this, and then who knows if he wins more or whatever, it'll say X number of national titles, and this will count just like the other ones. There's always hypotheticals, but I mean, is that not true? So often in sports when like someone has a big injury, right?
Sure.
And all of a sudden it just changes the nature of the bracket. I mean, there's a lot of those. And this is another one of them. But, I mean, it's not the same because like you said, this is NC State right here, very down near the end. You're playing them. But, I mean, VCU got bounced. Michigan hockey got bounced. Notre Dame hockey got bounced. It's that kind of year. So, I mean, this whole time period is going to have a big – I don't know if it's an asterisk. It's like a big middle finger attached to it, for all that went on. But, I mean, if Vanderbilt beats Mississippi State twice this week, Vanderbilt is the national champion.
Yeah.
And should celebrate it as much as any of their other ones.
I agree. I think that'll be – look, I said this after the Stanford game. It felt like when Stanford let them off the hook that was a team where you got a chance to finish them, and you better finish them because if not, they're going to come back and make you pay. I didn't really anticipate it looking like this, where Vanderbilt's coming back at this point. But, I mean, I love their chances heading into this matchup against Mississippi State. And we'll get more into that matchup coming up next. Taking your thoughts as well on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. We'll do that on the other side. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game, streaming live on Periscope, on YouTube, and on Twitch as well. Talking Vanderbilt back in the College World Series Finals. Joe, we had a couple people reach out over the weekend on Twitter. I got a few text messages as well asking about our bet with Heidi. What happens now that the game on Saturday was not played and that the pedicures were on the table at that point? If you missed it, we had a little friendly wager heading into the game on Saturday that if Jack Leiter started the game, Joe Rexrode, Chase McCabe would have to get pedicures with our good friend Heidi from Dixon on the text line. By the way, I was out near Dixon on Saturday.
Oh, yeah?
Did not see Heidi, but
well, how would
nice
you know
area.
if you saw Heidi?
Well, maybe I did. That's a good point. It's a nice area out there. And if Jack Leiter did not start on Saturday, myself and Ryan Porth would have to get pedicures. The game did not happen on Saturday. So I guess we're all off the hook for pedicures at this point. We'll have to figure out something.
Technically speaking, Jack Leiter did not pitch on Saturday.
That is
so
true.
how nitty-gritty into the rules here? How are we going to roll this?
I mean, I think we did establish that the game had to be played.
Yeah, I'm not going to hold to that. But how about this? If we get Tim Corbin on the air after it's all over, and he will confirm either way, yes, Leiter was starting, or no, he wasn't. Would we count that? Can that count?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Okay. All right. So we'll see if
Now that counts for me, and I can go ahead and tell you.
Porth's going to complain.
I was 100% convinced that Porth was going to chicken out anyway, and now that you've given him this out, he's not going to do it. But I'll do it.
Well,
I will hold up to it.
If you agree and I agree. And that's 2 out of 3, right? I mean, doesn't majority rule?
I mean, we'll have to get McCabe's thoughts too, but yeah.
Yeah, but McCabe just wants to get a pedicure.
I think that's what it was.
He's just trying to get a free pedicure out of this.
I think
he's
so.
probably like a pedicure freak,
enthusiast.
You know? Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's like, hey, I'll get on this.
Elijah, have you ever had a pedicure?
Whichever side loses.
I haven't. My feet are really ticklish, though. I've always wanted one, but here's the thing. I'm afraid I want to kick some poor woman in the face because I'm just like my feet are so ticklish.
Involuntary reaction?
Involuntary, yeah, exactly. And I don't have to apologize for breaking someone's nose. So it sounds fantastic, but I don't know. It
sounds fantastic?
Yeah, it's a risky maneuver.
Does it, though?
Yeah, I don't know if fantastic would be my word. But, hey, to each their own.
Well, we'll see. Maybe we will. Maybe if we get through the end of this and Tim Corbin comes on and we throw that hypothetical scenario, maybe we explain the stakes to him as well.
I mean, Corbin, I love, people trying to get him to name like his pitcher. Like, he's never going to do it. We all know Jack
Leiter's going to pitch tonight.
We all know Jack Leiter's starting tonight, but he's like, yeah, we're gonna see how it goes. But maybe after the fact, he will shed some light on that. That'd be great.
Let's go to our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. JC in Goodlettsville texting in. I hate this for NC State, but don't forget Vandy could have lost the national championship last year having Rocker, Leiter, and not getting to play at all.
Oh, no doubt. I mean,
true.
I mean, last year's team has they still have Tyler
Well, had a
Brown in the
better
bullpen.
lineup,
They
too.
got Austin Martin at the
Yeah.
top of the lineup, and they got those guys. No, I mean, last year's team, frankly, could have been kind of like that best of both worlds. The 19 team was loaded, and there's a lot of good pitching, veteran pitching on that team, along with the J.J. Bleday, and they were loaded. But honestly, last year's team with Leiter as a freshman, and he looked the part from the start. That might have been the best one, and they never got the chance. So that's a good point. You can always. And there's so much shoulda, coulda, woulda in sports history. And if I'm an NC State fan, I'm believing all the way that this team was going to win it all. And then you may well be right. It sucks.
Is NC State going to get like those UCF national title shirts printed up at this point?
Well, that's already well underway.
Oh,
I've seen some memes on Twitter amid the Vandy shirt burnings. I've seen some NC State championship shirts. Like the people's – again, like the governor of North Carolina, okay? I got to read this tweet. Okay, Pat McCrory. The NCAA may have tried to cancel the NC State Wolfpack, but we won't let their nonsense continue. Sign our petition to demand, in all caps, the NC president be fired, in all caps, and that NC State be able to compete for a championship.
Well, let's kind of break that down. For starters, I think you won't have much of a problem getting people to sign a petition to get Mark Emmert fired. Like, I don't think that'd be a very difficult thing to accomplish at all.
Again, yeah, you're going to get a 9-0 vote in the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Evergreen statement.
Yeah. So, I mean, that part of it, sure. I mean, you could probably have pretty good success with that. I don't know that this necessarily requires Mark Emmert being fired.
Yeah,
though.
Mark Emmert being fired does not then lead to you being back in the tournament.
No.
But hey, I appreciate the tweet.
So what do you think of this matchup for Vanderbilt? Back in the College World Series final, an all-SEC final for the third time in the past 10 years. Mississippi State, they've been very familiar, been very close in Omaha the past few years. Now they've broken through and gotten to the final. A team in Mississippi State that does not strike out very often. They're very good at putting the ball in play, taking on a Vanderbilt team that I believe was second in the nation in strikeout. So kind of a battle of strengths on that front. What do you think of this matchup for Vanderbilt as they move into the final beginning tonight, taking on the Mississippi State Bulldogs?
Well, I mean, if you're a Mississippi State fan, you can get beyond the hope that the entire country is rooting for you. This is very much, to me, it's perfect for them. Like, this is the hump you want to get over. It's your third straight tournament that you're in the final. Or not in the final, but you're in Omaha. Third straight trip to Omaha in the last 3 tournaments. And this is a special team, too. I mean, some of those games this week, just like always this year, I mean, so many clutch moments in there. Christian McLeod is going tonight. That's their second-best pitcher. And, he's good. I mean, this is a team that, like you said, they are a grinded-out lineup, a lot of good hitters. They drive up pitch counts, and that's absolutely the plan against Leiter tonight. It's the plan when I think Rocker will go. And look, Rocker on short rest if they have a game 3. I mean, that's that's a guy that maybe they're not going to be comfortable going like 120 pitches or something with him. So, really, really good team. I mean, Tanner Allen is an absolute stud.
Yep.
Rowdy Jordan is a stud. I mean, they're loaded, and they have been waiting for this moment. I think that they would rather have Vanderbilt than anybody else there because if they can beat them to win it all, I think it's doubly sweet.
Well, and it kind of sets up for, I think, a lower scoring series because I talked about Vanderbilt being second in the nation in strikeouts. Mississippi State is number 1 in the nation in strikeouts. Now, they're not quite as strong with the ERA and some other categories pitching-wise, and they'll have a few innings that get away from them more often than Vanderbilt does. But this could set up to be quite the challenging series for this Vanderbilt lineup, which, I mean, even the other day against NC State with a depleted lineup, they still didn't hit the ball as well as I thought they would heading into that matchup.
No, I mean, honestly, and that's been lost on all this. I mean, Vanderbilt's lineup right now it's a concern. It's very young in some spots, and they got a lot of guys that they need to get going. And maybe this extra time helps some guys kind of clear their heads and get extra BP or whatever, but they're not full cylinder right now. They're really not. And they need, Isaiah Thomas has been replaced now. I mean, it's good. Maybe they get more Colwick this week. It's going to be really interesting to see the lineup. I mean, one guy who's given them a huge spark is Javier Vaz. I mean, he's been great. They need, Bradfield with the huge hit, the biggest hit of the year, obviously, to help have them here at this point. But then he goes 0 for 5 the other day, and they need him, obviously, to be a catalyst. Now, for Mississippi State, their ace, Will Bednar, went against Texas through 6 innings, through 97 pitches. So this is on Saturday night. So what's his availability going to be? I'm sure we'll see him if it gets to like game 3, but are you starting that guy on, let me do the math, on 3 days rest? Ooh, man, I don't know. Is it just going to be a bullpen stint for him possibly on Wednesday? I mean, he's flat out their best pitcher, sophomore, right-hander fireballer.
Yeah.
So I mean, they're not in the same shape that Vanderbilt's in, but they had to obviously. I mean, it was huge to be able to go to him and to get here.
Yeah, and you mentioned the slump that Vanderbilt's in right now, and a big part of that has been Carter Young as well. He's been trying to fight through the injury. He had the big home run earlier in Omaha, but other than that, and he's not really done anything offensively. He was 0 for 3 the other day. I think he's got 1 hit, maybe 2 hits in the entire tournament. It's not gone well thus far offensively for Carter Young either. And he's been such a massive part of that lineup all season long. And I think it's pretty clear, and Tim Corbin's talked about this a little bit here on our show as well, trying to fight back through that injury and be able to get back to where he was offensively. That has been a challenge for Carter Young.
Right. And you're fighting through the injury, and he's able to bat both sides now, but probably affected there. And maybe it's affected his defense too. He's had a couple of errors, which is so strange to see from him. Yeah. A guy like Young, can Isaiah Thomas get back in the lineup and get something going? Obviously, you got to have the middle of the order, Keegan and those guys. I mean, Lefebvre. They need a couple of these bats, I think, to get hot, or I don't think they're going to win 2 more games.
Yeah, and you've got to find a way to make some timely hits as well and get that from your lineup. They've done that at times. We talked about Enrique Bradfield being able to do that as well. But you brought up a point earlier, which I think is huge, and we've talked about kind of the reaction to this for Vanderbilt. One thing that I think does help is they should have their full complement of bullpen players available to them at this point heading into this series. So if you can get a good outing today from Leiter and get enough offense today to go with it, where you set yourself up where you've just got to win one of Game 2 and Game 3, whether it's Patrick Riley or Christian Little or whoever would start Game 2 at that point, probably going to be a busy day for the bullpen, and I think you're much more equipped to do that now than you would be if you played that game on Saturday, especially, Luke Murphy wouldn't have been able to play Saturday probably with as much as he pitched. I think you're in a much better spot now from that standpoint.
I do too. Now, look, I believe in the psychology. For Vanderbilt, you talk about the asterisk. I believe in the psychology and how it worked in NC State's favor, as crazy as that is Friday. I think we saw it. A team in that situation has a certain edge. You still rather have all your players. I understand that. But I kind of looked at it like if they get their people back Saturday, it's almost like Vanderbilt has that edge back. But it would have been a cobbling together pitching situation, probably a ton of McIlvain and Maldonado in that game, no Murphy. And like you said, they're obviously in better shape now, but they need Leiter tonight to go deep and to pitch like he's been pitching. If he pitches like he's been pitching, you can't ask for much more if you're Vanderbilt other than, give the dude a couple runs.
Yeah. I'll tell you this, when I think it was Brown who made that catch in right field for NC State on Friday. When he made that catch, I was like, oh, it's going to be one of those games, huh?
Yep.
This is going to be one of those things where NC State just rallies together. One of the greatest catches I've ever seen. That was unbelievable.
And that was Vaz.
Yeah.
That's an inside-the-park homer if he doesn't catch it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a heck of a risk, and he made a great play on that front. Vanderbilt underway tonight in the College World Series final. Game 1 against Mississippi State. You can check that out starting tonight at 6 o'clock. I believe on ESPN2 is the game tonight.
ESPN2 tonight, ESPN regular tomorrow, then back to the Deuce if they have a third game.
There we go. So that's the schedule starting tonight for Vanderbilt against Mississippi State. When we come back, we're going to switch gears and get into a little Tennessee football and maybe a roadmap for success in Josh Heupel's first season. We'll get to that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode live from the Wholesaling Studios, powered by RumbleOn.com here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, hour number 2 of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Elijah Campbell here with you on this Monday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. It was a busy weekend for the Vols as well. We talked about it last week on the show. Caden Salter has been dismissed from the program, the quarterback, the highly recruited quarterback from Tennessee. He released a statement over the weekend as well. Caden Salter putting his name into the transfer portal. So his time at Tennessee is over with before it ever began, which is about average for Tennessee football. That's been a consistent theme the last few years. Aaron Beasley back on the team that we discussed last week as well. And there was an interesting piece that came out over the weekend from Saturday Down South. Connor O'Gara put this together and kind of provided a roadmap for maybe what could be considered a success for Tennessee in Josh Heupel's first season in 2021. And Connor O'Gara went back to the 2020 Ole Miss team with Lane Kiffin coming in his first year. Obviously, the offense was a ton of fun to watch. They put up a lot of points. I think back to that Alabama game where it seemed like the last team that had the ball was going to be the one that won. Alabama pulled away in the end, but an offensive performance all season long that was really good from Ole Miss. They had a combined average of 77.5 points in their games. Not much defense to speak of in these Ole Miss games last year with Lane Kiffin. Now, Ole Miss, that team wasn't really a good team. They were pretty good offensively and a fun team to watch. In your mind, Joe Rexrode, as you look at this roster that Josh Heupel is inheriting, his style of play, the expectations on this offense coming into this season with him at the helm, is that a best-case scenario for you in year one under Josh Heupel, is to have an offense that's fun to watch like we saw from Ole Miss last year? Probably not going to be a factor in the SEC East, but at least you're fun to watch and you're putting up a lot of points. Is that the best-case scenario for Josh Heupel heading into year one here in Knoxville?
Yeah, I was just going to have a line about we're probably not going to see Heupel throw his clipboard up into the air.
Probably not.
But actually, that would have been Connor X. He wrote that in his piece, so good line, Connor. Yeah, I think, listen, right now, Tennessee, what's the appeal and what are your strengths? I mean, I think you got to play to them. You got to you've got to sell that, and you've got to be that. And as much as you want to have a competent defense, I mean, you want to be able to win football games. I do think that one big selling point now versus what we've just been watching is that you might have an offense that is not painful to endure series after series. Hopefully it's fun and obviously prolific too. I mean, it would be, first game, Bowling Green. I mean, I'm setting the over-under at acceptable Tennessee points at 33.5.
Yeah.
You got to this is what you do. This is what you're known for. You've had very good success with players and offenses at different stops. And you've got some players here. That's the thing. Tennessee has some good offensive skill, and I think some good offensive line talent still also. So, I think there's pieces in place. It's all about the quarterback, but you certainly can't say you don't have options there. I mean, you would think that out of all those guys, and my buddy and coworker David Ubben is bullish that Joe Milton is going to emerge from the pack, and maybe he will. Maybe What we saw last year at Michigan was just largely about that thumb injury, and I just thought I thought there were a lot of flaws in his game. We'll see, but someone should emerge. Someone should play that position well, and there's a lot around that person.
Well, you've got 4 quarterbacks at the moment. You've got Harrison Bailey, Hendon Hooker that's come in from Virginia Tech. You mentioned Joe Milton as well, and Brian Maurer is still there. Now, Salter, I think him being dismissed changes things a little bit, but I was floored that Maurer hung around, and apparently Maurer's been looking pretty good in these spring ball practices. Now, look, could he just be this dramatically different player under Heupel? Maybe. I don't know. Do I think Jeremy Pruitt and Jim Chaney's offense suck that bad? Yes, I do. So, we could see some players that maybe you're not even expecting offensively to come in and make an impact, make a pretty significant impact. But my guess would be Maurer's probably 4th on the depth chart when the season gets kicked off and underway. But you would think between those 4 guys, you'll find more competent quarterback play than we saw at any point last year with this Tennessee program, which I realize is not a very high bar, but that's got to be where at least the starting point is with this offense. And I agree. Like, I think also from recruiting, and we're going to get to that a little bit more coming up here in just a second, you got to find something that you can sell if you're Josh Heupel. And you can sell a really fun offense. Like, Lane Kiffin's doing pretty well in recruiting at Ole Miss, and their defense is absolutely atrocious. But, man, is it fun to watch Ole Miss play? Is it fun to watch Lane Kiffin on that side of the ball operate? I don't think Josh Heupel's Lane Kiffin, and I don't think that, Tennessee's offense is going to be quite as prolific as Ole Miss's was this past season. But I do think that's a pretty good blueprint for success. Like, if you're Josh Heupel, you got to find a way to start out scoring some teams and play that brand of football, because I think, given what I think that the state of that roster is going to be on the defensive side of the ball, that's probably your best way to win games this year, is to find a way to get your offense to a point where it's fun, it's exciting, and it can put up a lot of points in a hurry.
Yeah, now there's obviously a big difference if we're going to make that comparison in terms of, like, Lane Kiffin could sell, a ketchup popsicle to someone in white gloves. I mean, that's one of my favorite.
Yes.
I don't even know where that comes from.
That's good.
You never heard that one before,
No,
Elijah?
I haven't either.
No.
That's great.
No, that's good.
But, I mean, Lane Kiffin is the ultimate salesman. Now, some people may say he's a little full of it at times.
By the way, have you seen him? He's lost like 50 pounds.
Oh, is that right?
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, there's like a before and after photo of Lane Kiffin from 2020 in Ole Miss where it looked like he'd had a few biscuits. And then in 2021, he's lost some weight, man. Lane Kiffin's looking good. Joey Freshwater's coming back.
Back on the bar scene. There you go. Right. Looking good, Lane. Yeah, I noticed that he's a little bit thicker, which happens. Which happens even to those of us who are used to be elite athletes. I mean, it happens, But good for him. Well, he's going to be fun, man. He's going to be entertaining, and his offense is, but he also is. He makes it. So, I mean, it's a combination, which I think is very attractive to recruits out there. So, look, Heupel's just not the same personality. But I do think that the offense itself can sell itself. But you got to come out this year and you've got to show that. I mean, I just think it's not fair necessarily to say, okay, you're just starting out a program, so immediately, show us the best of what you got, and you've got to do this and this and this on the field, or you're really behind the 8 ball in recruiting. But I mean, that's why this job, in part, it just has not been as attractive to other coaches around the country. It's a tough spot to be in. And I think the one thing from the start, even the day that we were sitting here like, really? That's who you went with? That was the one thing you talked about. It was like, well, the offense should be way better. And offense right now, it is the name of the game. There aren't many. I mean, there's still teams out there that have tons of defensive talent and first rounders and great coaching, and they get into 40 to 35 shootouts still in today's game. I mean, that's how it is. I mean, Nick Saban, look at those old Alabama, like the 09 champs, or like the LSU Bama game from, like, that seems so far away now.
Slugfest to get across the 50-yard line. I mean, it just doesn't happen anymore.
Right? And even with ridiculous collections of talent on that side of the ball, like, the offense is just winning right now. So if I have to pick a style, and I'm an AD, and I have a lot of things that are similar on one side or the other versus two candidates, I'm probably going to go with the offensive guy.
Steven on the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, says, Tommy Boy was the first time I'd heard the popsicle / white glove saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, then that's definitely where I got it from, because I've watched that movie 17 times. Apologies to Tommy Boy. And Connor O'Gara for almost stealing your clipboard line.
Yeah. The Joe Restaurant on the prowl in this segment. Just getting things done on that side. We'll continue the discussion on the Vols when we come back, including recruiting. Not going well for Josh Heupel so far in state. How concerned are we at this point about recruiting with Josh Heupel? We'll get to that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. This Friday, it's your chance to participate in the Nashville SC Pick to Click, brought to you by Camarena Tequila. If you guess correctly which player scores a goal in the game this Saturday night, you win a prize pack and a 4-pack of tickets to an upcoming Nashville SC home game. Participate this Friday morning at 9:45. Welcome back in. Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Elijah Campbell here with you on this Monday morning in Nashville, Tennessee, talking Tennessee Vols and maybe the roadmap to success in year one for Josh Heupel. We've thrown out Ole Miss as a possible comparison from last year. If you're Josh Heupel, is that the best case scenario in year one? Taking your thoughts on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. And Joe, speaking of Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin and company, the latest to kind of come in and steal another recruiting target from Tennessee as well. There are, according to 24/7 Sports, 10 guys in state that are the top targets in the state of Tennessee, 7 of which have committed at this point. None of those commitments are at the University of Tennessee. The latest is Taylor Groves, who is a safety out of Cross Plains. East Robertson standout. Taylor Groves, the number 17 safety, number 262 prospect overall nationally in the class of 2022 on the 24/7 Sports composite ranking. So a 4-star guy. Ole Miss comes in, and Lane Kiffin gets him to commit to Ole Miss from the state of Tennessee. The in-state guys not reacting well so far to Tennessee and Josh Heupel. At what point is this concerning if you're a Tennessee fan? Are you already there in concern level with Josh Heupel and his in-state recruiting, or when you factor in the situation that he's walked into and everything that's happened with Butch Jones and Jeremy Pruitt and where this program is right now, potentially still facing a postseason ban this year, do you put more of it on that side of things? What's your concern level right now if you're a Tennessee fan based on the way recruiting has gone thus far under Josh Heupel?
Well, yes would be my answer. Look, anyone coming in would be faced with challenges. And I think it would be, unless you were landing some home run hire that at this point probably unrealistic. Well, not probably, is unrealistic. Yeah. Unless you're doing that, you are coming in a bad situation when it comes to recruiting. Even if you're doing that, it's very easy to negative recruit against Tennessee. They all negative recruit. Everybody negative recruits. Everybody. But with Tennessee now, that's a slam dunk. You got so many different things you can point to. It's a tough spot. Now, I do think that, look, coming in, I think that was one of the biggest, to me, just, football red flags on Heupel was just, the recruiting actually went the other way a little bit at UCF when he got there. He inherited a great situation there. He inherited a situation there that, for that level, certainly. And again, even college football at large, you're talking about a tremendous recruiting base.
Yeah.
And everybody goes there to recruit, but that still leaves a lot of good players and great momentum and a lot of visibility. And it went the other way. It slid a little bit under him. Is it a small sample size? Yes, very small. And so all the stuff that happened there, I still think you have to keep an open mind and say, look, every program, every coach, Nick Saban included, has dips here and there. It's a small sample size. But it kind of goes along with, Josh Heupel I think he's been impressive in terms of how he's dealt with people. I think the way he runs his program in terms of fans, media, et cetera, stuff like that. Players, I think he's done a good job, but he's not super dynamic. He's not known as, some coaches kind of rise up and have that rep as ace recruiter, just have that feel. I think Heupel's more X's and O's guy than that, which again is fine. Everybody has their strengths, but it does kind of feed into this, what we're seeing right now, whether it's fair or not, that maybe his limitations there are already surfacing.
Yeah, I think that was the concern, as you said, kind of heading into this. And look, I don't want to say I give him a complete pass for this, because you still are the University of Tennessee, and you should be able to land some in-state guys. So they're not going to get a total pass from me, but it's interesting. And I feel like this was the case certainly under Derek Dooley. You heard it to start to be the case under Butch Jones toward the end as well. And now there have been some comments coming about Pruitt as well from some of these in-state guys of they just didn't feel like they were a priority. They didn't feel like under Pruitt's staff that they were, checking in on them regularly. They just felt like they were a part of a list. And that's what we've heard from some of these recruits since they've gone elsewhere and committed to other places. I just don't understand that. If you're Josh Heupel, number one, you've got to find a way to fix that. I mean, look, Tennessee, their high school talent is getting better. High school football around here, I think, is getting better with each passing year. It's a lot of fun. People are moving in here, and the talent base, compared to when I was in high school, the talent base right now in this state, it's a lot better. There's a lot better high school football than there used to be. It's still not Georgia. It's still not Texas. It's not Florida. I don't know if it's ever going to be those states when it comes to a recruiting base that you can pick from. But if you're Tennessee, you can't have your top-rated guys in your state be going to Ole Miss and be going to South Carolina like we've seen a few times. I think everybody can understand at this point you losing a recruiting battle to Clemson or you losing a recruiting battle to LSU or to Alabama, even Georgia. But when you start losing recruiting battles to Missouri and Kentucky and South Carolina and Ole Miss, that's when Tennessee fans are going to start to have a problem, and that's got to be something that Josh Heupel fixes. Because if you can't fix that, you're not going to be able to put yourself in a position to win. It's just going to be too big of a hill to climb.
No, totally agree. I mean, look, you lose the star QB that you had high hopes and the last staff was in on and whatever. You can't, and even with the offense and all this stuff, you can't be mad about that if you're a Tennessee fan. You just have to move on from that.
Yeah, Ty Simpson going to Alabama is not all that surprising.
But I totally agree. This is where you got to be able to draw the line with some of these programs. And look, Kiffin is going to be a problem. Stoops at Kentucky is a problem. Kiffin, because again, this is what he comes right in. He came right in at Tennessee and shook things up. Some good, some bad, but the guy makes an impact. And Stoops has done, to me, just a masterful job of gradually building that program. And he was at a program where patience was built in because they don't have the expectations or the history. But I agree. Sooner rather than later, you've got to draw the line and not lose guys like that. And it is interesting with the in-state thing, and that's where it's tough with – some fans are like, well, just, offer everyone, go national offer. But, you have to make some choices. You have to emphasize certain areas, and you can't just cast a net everywhere and think that you're going to win some of these recruiting battles. You got to prioritize things, and that's something that they have to figure out too. But I agree with you. Obviously the in-state talent is much better. It's also still well behind a Georgia, obviously a Florida. There are other states in the region that still have more guys, but there's certainly a pretty significant uptick, and it's going to keep going that way here. You've got to do well in state. And if you look at some of Pruitt's and Butch Jones's wins, there's some big in-state guys that they landed that were a big part of some pretty talented teams. So it's tough for Heupel here. I do think that's why, even though this first season isn't high pressure, it shouldn't be, based on where they are, what he inherited, the whole situation, demonstrating some things on the field that make people want to play at Tennessee is really important.
Yeah, there's got to be kind of that long-term view in mind. And look, I think it used to be the case with a lot of in-state guys that if Tennessee offered them, they were going. They were going to Tennessee because it's Tennessee. I just don't think that's the case anymore. If you're a high-level guy in Tennessee, and maybe even you grew up around the Knoxville area or you grew up rooting for Tennessee and that's been your team, I think a lot of times coaching staffs around here have just assumed, okay, well, they're Tennessee. They grew up in Tennessee. They're a Tennessee fan. They'll go here. I don't have to worry about them. I don't have to spend too much time recruiting them. I just don't think that's the case anymore. I think college football, it's so nationally based now, and there's such a hyper-focus from your top-level guys of trying to get to the NFL and trying to get to the league. And you just ask yourself, do you have a better chance right now of getting to the NFL playing at Tennessee, or do you have a better chance in the NFL getting developed at LSU or getting developed at Georgia or Alabama? I just don't think if you're Josh Heupel and his staff and I don't think they're taking this approach anyway, but if you were taking an approach at any point here of, yeah, they're Tennessee guys, so they're going to come to Tennessee, I think those days are gone with this program. Now, maybe you can get it back to that point at some point. Like, I think that absolutely exists, especially in, like, Louisiana. I think there are guys who are like, I'm going to LSU. Like, that's what I'm doing. And we see it. LSU, they've benefited from that in the past. And I think that used to be the case with Tennessee. I don't think that's the case anymore. And you've got to find a way to try and help get it back to that point if you're Josh Heupel.
Well, and also kids, I mean, look, when that was way more built in, that was also kids who grew up watching Tennessee win on Saturdays and watching Tennessee compete for championships for a long, long time, from, a few years into the majors era all the way through the end of Fulmer, basically. Yep. I mean, and now young kids are – like their first memories, so like someone right now who graduates, your first probable memories of Tennessee football would be like probably Dooley. Yeah. I mean, like it's just so different.
God help them if that's the case.
Rommel,
yes,
shower
etiquette,
flip flops.
Yeah.
Nah, but I mean, it's just it's very different. So it's harder for that to even be a thing. Not to mention all the stuff you talked about. I mean, there's a lot more things that go into it. Now, when you talk about developing players, this is where if a Joe Milton comes from Harbaugh and all of a sudden you get a big year out of him at quarterback, or maybe a Hendon Hooker is the guy, whoever, if you have a guy in that spot and you can show people, see, we at Tennessee, we develop quarterbacks who can play in the NFL.
Yeah.
That's where – that's probably as important as anything to me, is like that quarterback play this year looks way different, both for fans who obviously just want it to be good, and it's been so long since Josh Dobbs, but also I think for the recruiting aspect of things.
Speaking of quarterbacks, we talked about Caden Salter being dismissed from the team, and you brought up the aspect of negatively recruiting. How much do you think that part of it and dismissing Salter so quickly hurts Tennessee even more when it comes to the negative recruitment of everything going on with this program right now, both with the program itself and now with the way Heupel has handled a pretty high-level recruit as well to go along with it?
It'll be used against him. I mean, it flat out will. Now, again, I don't know everything. I haven't read everything. I saw that he put out a statement. I'm still of the belief that this can't just be about two weed things. I don't.
That would be my guess.
I don't buy that. I can't buy that this is just two marijuana things, and I'm not excusing them. I'm not excusing being immature and having something when you had something big and then you have it again. I mean, it's not excusable, but I also don't think it's dismissible unless there's something else that goes with it. But regardless, oh yeah, people will be using this against Josh Heupel, absolutely. Like, that he says he's going to take care of your kid. He says you send your boy to him, and he's gonna. And look at this, he bounces a kid for two marijuana. Marijuana is just about legal everywhere now. It's like drinking a beer, and he just threw a kid out on the street. I mean, that's what people are gonna say. I promise you.
Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Got a texture that says Tennessee kids know the Tennessee program is a train wreck. They don't want to go there. Some winning will get Tennessee kids back in there.
Question
is what level of winning? Like, what level of winning gets Tennessee kids back in there? That, to me, is the question as you move forward. And I think the offense has a lot to do with that.
Well, if you have a good offense and you're like an 8-4 type program, then I think maybe you win some of those against the Kentuckys and Ole Misses and South Carolinas. Those are the ones that you can't lose those.
No.
So that, I think, you get there. Now, we're not even to the point anymore where we can sit here and say, when are they going to be back with an
Alabama? That's so far off.
You got to get to this first, and I do think that good offense and 8-4-ish football, you should win more of those.
When we come back, we will switch gears. The Stanley Cup final is set. What do we think of the matchup? What do we think of the chances for former Preds captain Shea Weber to lift Lord Stanley's Cup? We'll get to that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Elijah Campbell here with you on this Monday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. We've got the Rex Rant coming up in about 15 minutes at 7:45. Joe Rexrode has his rant of the week, which you can hear every Monday at 7:45. That coming up here in just a few minutes. Corey Curtis coming up at 8 o'clock to begin the next hour. We'll get his thoughts on a variety of different topics. The Vandy boys, Stanley Cup final, little Titans talk as well coming up with Corey Curtis to begin the 8 o'clock hour. And as always, taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Joe Rexrode, the Stanley Cup final is set. Montreal punches their ticket against Vegas in 6 games. Shea Weber and company heading to the Stanley Cup final. Weber for the first time in his career, Montreal for the first time since 1993. Tampa Bay and the New York Islanders in a battle in Game 7 over the weekend. Tampa Bay gets it done. They win 1-0. Yet another series-clinching shutout for Andrei Vasilevsky. So the reigning champions are back in the Stanley Cup final. No surprise that the Lightning is here. I think a surprise to everyone that Montreal has made it to this point, although I will say our own Elijah Campbell did give Montreal a lot of love early in the playoffs. You may have been the only person that picked him in each of the first 2 rounds. Maybe in the world.
I wasn't going to let Toronto do that to me again.
No.
I've fallen for that the last several
That's right.
years. And it's just like, it just felt like the most Toronto thing to happen. Now, did I think they would make it all the way this far? Absolutely not. Because I really don't expect teams that were 8 games under 500 to appear in the Stanley Cup final.
But you picked them against Winnipeg, too. So
Yeah,
you at least had them going to the semifinals.
especially once Scheifele got suspended. I think that one was just, that set the tone for the entire series. So that one made a little more sense too, but like nothing, literally nothing in the Vegas series made any kind of sense or was logically sound. Like it's the team defies the physics of the sport itself.
Yeah. It's been amazing to watch them get to this point. So now that they're here, Joe Rexrode, as you look at this series between Montreal and Tampa Bay, what do you think of this matchup? How much of a chance do you give the Canadians in this series taking on the defending champs?
I gave them 0 chance last round.
I know. So did I.
0. Like, I basically laughed at the entire idea. So, hey, this happens. So let's compare, like, we've talked a little bit about this, but it does it comes to mind just because, like, the Kings actually finished the job and they were the 8 seed. Jonathan Quick, I think they had a more talented team.
Yes.
Than this particular team.
Yes.
Does it remind you of that, though?
I mean, a little bit. I think with the way that Carey Price is playing right now, they're going to be tough to beat. Like, if basically what Montreal, the game plan has been this playoffs, get to 2 goals. If you can get to 2 goals, you're going to give yourself a chance to win. Which that's a heck of a way to play. If you could find a way to get to 2 goals, by and large, you're going to find a way to win.
Will that work against these guys, though?
I don't know. I mean,
Braden
Point's scoring every game at this point. So, I don't know. I mean, I look at Tampa Bay. I kind of view them as the overwhelming favorite heading into this series. And Tampa Bay, honestly, like I think back to a couple of years ago when they got swept in the first round. Like, if that didn't happen and they were able to get through that series, like this, they kind of feel like an all-time great team. Like, they really do. I mean, they were so good last year. They just rolled through the playoffs. They're rolling right back through the playoffs again this year. And I know they've got a little bit more of a villain role to them this year based on, number one, they've already won. But number two, the salary cap stuff with Kucherov. And, you know, you run the numbers now, and they're about $18 million over the cap. Which is not their fault. It is the NHL's fault for continuing to allow this to happen. It happened in 2015 with the Blackhawks as well, where they basically, after the trade deadline, just hid Patrick Kane and due to injury, and they brought him back for the playoffs. I mean, this has been something that's happened multiple times in the NHL. So I don't blame the Tampa Bay Lightning for it, but I do think there's a lot of hate being directed their way for that as well. But they're just so good. I mean, we talk about how good they are at scoring goals, and they are. They've got a prolific offense. They're also giving up like the fewest goals allowed in the league in the playoffs. I mean, their defense is incredible, and they've got the best goaltender in the world. So my initial thought on the series is Tampa Bay in 6, but I keep underestimating Montreal, and they keep finding a way to advance and move on. And with the way they're playing right now, look, I look at Montreal, and we had Rob call in the other day saying that we're not giving the Canadians enough credit. Maybe we're not, but I still look at that roster, and they don't really have anybody that just scares you. Like, nobody blows you away on that Montreal roster. I mean, Cole Caulfield's been great. They've got a good decor back there. And Suzuki's a nice player. Toffoli's a good player. But they don't have, like, that superstar dynamic guy offensively that's just pushing you back. Tampa Bay's got 3 of them. So, to me, it seems like a pretty big mismatch. But I guess at this point, underestimate Montreal at your own peril.
No, for sure. I mean, I'm out of that business now. I'm out of that business, and I expect them to find a way to keep this close. And, again, from time to time, it seems like Tampa Bay has been a little bit – they will get into some of these games like the last game. And then they'll like use too many on one night and beat you 8-0.
Yeah.
You know, so they haven't been like putting up 4 goals every single night. So I think the Canadians probably get a couple here, but it's hard for me too. I'm like, I feel 6 seems about right to me too.
Which I'm pulling like crazy for Montreal in this series. I really am. Which is amazing to say. I mean, you got Corey
It'd be cool
Perry.
for Shea Weber.
It'd be cool for I want to see Shea Weber win a cup really bad. Like I am pulling hard for Shea Weber to win a cup here.
But that also means this whole Montreal Canadiens press corps fan base.
I know.
Arrogance.
It's already back, so you might as well just win
already
at this
back.
point.
Yeah. So they won't be humbled if they get swept here by the Lightning?
I don't think so.
So, by the way, I thought it would, all these predictions and stuff, and it's about what you'd expect. Some people, actually probably a little more picking the Canadians than I would have thought, but this thing jumps out at me. So I'm going to ask both of you guys if you could guess this. 2022, this is our NHL staff.
I'd say Colorado or Vegas.
You're right, Colorado. Yeah. That surprised me a little bit.
I think a lot of people feel like this offseason, Colorado is going to make a trade for Seth Jones, and you're going to have Seth Jones, Cale Makar, Nathan McKinnon, Landeskog, and Rantanen. It's pretty good.
It's not bad. And also, they're just going to say, bleep it, and just, go do it, man, or whatever.
Yeah. Just datarized. There'll be some T-shirts for that next year, too. Just go win.
But, Tampa Bay gets 7% of the vote, 7.5%. I mean, I know that their roster may be looking a little different next year, but still,
They're still going to be pretty good.
So, I mean, what's the D word? Dynasty. What's the what are the requirements?
I always kind of feel like you need to have 3 to be considered a dynasty.
I agree.
And 3 in a certain amount of time. Like 3 in 10 years, yeah, that's a dynasty. Like the Hawks were a dynasty, but they had 3 in 5 years. So it's a little different. Like I don't consider Pittsburgh to be a dynasty. Like 2009 and then 16 and 17, like maybe that's too far off. I think the Hawks.
I mean, it was like it's all Crosby era. So
it was, but like they're two completely
very
different teams.
Very different teams. Yeah. So a dynasty needs to be basically the same team.
Yeah.
So Golden State.
Yeah.
They were easily. Yeah.
Dynasty.
I think the Patriots had 2 different ones.
Which is but that's the thing. Then they have the 2 guys
that were there the whole time.
There the whole time.
Yeah.
So you could. Some people look at it like one thing, but yeah, I mean they had some significant downturns. I know it's hard to believe. Tom Brady did not win a Super Bowl every single year. They did go 10
years without winning a Super Bowl. Didn't win it every year, that guy.
He just did that on purpose.
Yeah, he was waiting.
He was trying to lull everyone to sleep for a decade.
Frank on the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. What Montreal is doing in the playoffs is why it wasn't so crazy to think the Predators could have made a run. What do you think of that? I've heard a lot of that in the last few days.
Like, I agree, okay? I agree that it's possible. It was possible. Shoot. There's a few plays in that series against Carolina. You change them, and you move on. Now, you probably need a few of those, and then a few more, and then maybe a couple more to beat Tampa Bay. But I agree that it's possible, but I think, again, to me, the test is also the regular season has to count for something. It has to. because it's still what you are over 82 games. It's not like Tampa Bay is limping in the playoffs and then making
I hear
runs.
you, but Montreal is not good in the regular season.
No. But all I'm saying is, this looks more like a random uprising than I expect Montreal to be among the best teams. I'm looking here, the 2022 Stanley Cup winner. 1, 2, 3. Oh, no one even mentioned Montreal.
Yeah.
So fine, you're right. It's worth getting in the tournament if you can get in. I get it. There's a lot of reasons to get in. We've talked about that, the business reasons.
Sure. But
if you're asking what is the state of the franchise, what is the direction of the franchise, if you make a random run here or there, that to me is not – that doesn't mean that you're that level of team. I think the Preds were that level of team in 16, 17, 18 range. Well, it's 2021.
April on Twitter says, I want Weber to win a cup. It's going to be tough, but if Carey Price can play well, you never know. I think they've got a shot. If their D can shut down Tampa's explosive offense, they have a chance to win. I agree.
I mean, I can't argue with it.
They've played a certain way the whole time. I mean, they have played their system to a T. They have mixed things up very well in the defensive zone, in the neutral zone. They've got a couple of guys at forward who just make life absolute hell for opposing teams' best forwards. And Philip Deneau is one of those guys. Arturi Lehkonen, who scored the game winner for Montreal in Game 6 to send them to the final, he's the other one. And, I mean, they don't have a ton of offense that they provide, but they're really good at shutting down other teams' top forwards. That's going to be the formula for Montreal. But I think a lot of Nashville now pulling for the Canadiens.
Yeah, just avert your eyes when Corey Perry's on the ice.
Yeah. Alex Burrows behind the bench as well. There are some doozies that they've got that Predators fans of old not going to like very much. Corey Perry, second consecutive Stanley Cup final.
That's gross.
I made the case 2 years ago the Predators should have got him in the offseason.
That would have been interesting.
That would have been interesting.
He's a guy you like on your side and pretty much hate in any other way.
Any
and possibly
other situation.
Even if you're a family member, per Ryan Johansson.
Yeah, possibly. So when we come back, it is time for the Rex Rant. Joe Rexrode lays it all out for us coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Oh, yeah, baby. The beautiful dulcet tones of Scott Stapp and Creed bringing us back in here on this beautiful Monday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. And that could only mean one thing. It is time for the Rex Rant here on Robby and Rexrode. We do this every Monday at 7:45. Joe Rexrode, he's got some things to say. Joe Rexrode, I turn things over to you for today's edition of the Rex Rant.
It's actually fitting that Elijah went Creed there, because I enjoyed a ton about the Preds Canes series.
Yeah.
But then, got to enjoy some Scott Stapp. And also I found out that my colleague Sarah Sivian is apparently just like the biggest Creed fan in the world.
Why wouldn't you be?
Yeah. I mean, I had no idea. I love Sarah's coverage. And
Nashville
then I found
resident,
out that,
Scott Stapp.
Oh, I know. Hope you're listening, Scott. You were rocking, buddy. You were rocking.
That's right.
So, and now we're kind of this is a little bit about Raleigh, North Carolina, also.
Okay.
So, and honestly, this is a rant aimed partially at me, because I did yesterday. I struggle with this. I talked to some other reporters. I talked to some folks in the Vanderbilt side of things, and it's one of those things where do you shout down stupid or do you ignore stupid? I think some people would say, please ignore at all times. Please ignore
stupid. This has been a
stupid.
battle for you for a while.
Well, it is. I think it's a battle for all of us, kind of
I agree.
like in this job, because, I mean, stuff does get life that shouldn't get life. And then if you address it, you are going to give it more. So my friend Mo Patton asked me about it. That's the thing. When people are coming to you and asking you, like, is this how this works? Could this possibly have happened? You know, ultimately, and then when it's well known, you know, among the people involved, because a lot of times the people involved in these things, the sports people, they actually do try to cut themselves off from media stuff. Now, some say they do and don't, but a lot of them do. But basically, it got to the certain point where the idea that, like, Tim Corbin had some hand in this whole thing, it's just like, all right, fine. I mean, because it's not only it's so moronic. I mean, the NCAA puts out a 2:10 a.m. press release, okay? Routinely leaves people in the dark, hands down decisions that don't make sense.
It's par for the course.
And then, but they're going to listen to the coach and say, hey, now, let me tell you something. You know what, Coach Corbin? You are right. We have protocols. But, I mean, like I wrote, like, there's not like a other coach says you should do it protocol here. I mean, it's so stupid. It got oxygen. I don't know if I should have contributed to it. But a big problem here, I think, is fan media, okay? We all have biases.
Sure.
We all have biases. We want to admit it or not. We're humans. No one is absolutely objective. No one's a robot. But I think in these jobs, it's important to try to be level-headed, try to be informed, try to look at both sides. If you cover a team and you cover someone who you like a lot and that person gets in legal trouble, well, guess what? You got to report on that too. And if you don't, then you need to be fired. So you always have to have that balance and that line drawn. And so look, I don't know Joe Giglio. He's a radio guy in North Carolina. I've actually followed him for a long time. I've enjoyed some of his takes. But he's a big reason that this got life, from what I can tell. You know, message board, and someone says it's a player saying it. Again, like if an NC State player is saying this, what does that mean? So were they privy to the discussions? The players? The NC State players?
They've got an audience with the NCAA now. Yeah.
Or did they bug the room?
Yeah.
So if an NC State player saw Corbin mad, well, he was mad because they told him nothing. But Joe Giglio is all in on this stuff, and including the Corbin quote that we talked about earlier in the show.
From Friday, before this all went down.
From Friday. And so his response to that quote, okay, I'm going to quote Joe here. Quote, an honest sportsman to the end, that Tim Corbin, or some other adjective that many have sent me about the Vandy coach. He's the one that has to look in the mirror. Those rings don't buy peace of mind. A man's got to live by a code. I don't appreciate Corbin.
Jeez.
And I saw this too. I quote tweeted. I'm like, huh? What the hell are you talking about? What are you talking about, man? And I understand, like, Apparently, he's a huge NC State fan. I mean, I don't know. He's like, print the shirts like the people's champion NC State. Fine, that's all fine. But like, where is the code that was violated by Tim Corbin? And then apparently he was going back and forth with people like, basically saying like, I know what really happened. I'm not just. He's got another one, okay, that apparently Vanderbilt fans go to him. He's like, LOL, you think I'm guessing? Ask anyone from the past 25 years in this market. I don't guess. So what do you know, Joe? Well, here's what I know. He deleted all this crap.
Yep.
So at some point he realized, oh, no, I'm actually saying dumb stuff that's not based in fact at all, and it's just ridiculously stupid. I would like to hear that. I saw that he had Boo Corrigan on his show today, or he's going to. I'd like to see some admission from him that he was way off base here because, look, we all make mistakes, but if you're going to go all in on something like this, you better have the goods, man. And the goods are not there, and it's so stupid. The goods are not there, and he knows it, and his stuff's been deleted. And this is why I thought partially why Oxygen needed to be pumped more into this, because when people in jobs like this cross that line, that's got to be called out. I mean, because again, there's already like a credibility thing with media now, like I've never seen before in general at large, and you got to do this stuff the right way. And so I'd like to see an apology from him at some point today.
You think that happens?
No, probably not, but I would like to see that.
I would like to see it too. Did you get into it on Twitter this weekend? I was off Twitter for much of the weekend, so did you get deep into the weeds on this stuff?
Not really. I mean, I quote tweeted that, and I just threw a couple tweets out, and then I made some calls about like exactly what, again, I never for a moment, I mean, it was a stupid idea from the start, just incredibly stupid that any coach in that situation is going to dictate what they do with their protocols that have been shaped by medical professionals over months. But I knew it was stupid, but it was still one of those things like, first of all, like, have you heard about this? Like, are you aware of this? And
right.
Yeah, the Vanderbilt camp was aware because again, because people like Joe who decides to pump. And here's another thing with this, and this can happen, and I don't know what happened, but I will give him a little defense. Sometimes you will get people on the NC State side who say, yeah, I think Corbin did that, or so, right? And so then you buy into it. And if that's the case, and then one of them was like, hey, man, like, it didn't really happen, or I wasn't saying it happened, and then he deletes all his tweets, I give him a shred of sympathy, but again,
you still have to say something after that. Like,
yeah,
you can't just be like, all right, I'm done.
Yeah,
Let's
don't
just pretend this never happened.
Don't say stuff until you know, unless you actually think you know. And again, common sense should have smacked you in the face from the start. It's such a dumb idea. So there's another few minutes spent on it. Wrote a column about it today. It's probably too much, but I do think sometimes stupid needs to be more than ignored.
Oh, I agree. I think there's certainly a time and a place for that, too. And, look, this idea, and, look, I still see some of it. I'm looking at Twitter right now. I still see some of it.
It'll never die.
With
some
Corbin,
people, it'll never die.
Tim Corbin is the one that got NC State thrown out of the tournament. I mean, I've seen a lot of that over the last couple of days, which, again, I understand it. I'm a Tennessee fan. I've been around the Tennessee fan base for a long time. There have been some wild stuff that's been thrown out there, man. So I get it. This happens with a lot of fan bases throughout the country. But some of the stuff on NC State Twitter right now is it's quite fascinating about how much power apparently Tim Corbin has with the NCAA just to get NC State kicked out, all because of him.
I mean, imagine if Tim Corbin and Tom Brady somehow joined forces. Omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent. Are there any other omna? Are there any more of
if
those?
Brady would have gone to play for Corbin, he would have been in the MLB, not in the NFL.
Oh, my God.
Didn't he get drafted? I thought Brady got drafted in the MLB.
Did he?
I think so.
Drew Henson did. I don't know about Brady. Maybe. But, yeah, I mean, obviously, like, together.
18th round of the Montreal Expos. Tom Brady.
Like, between the Jedi mind tricks, the cheating, and just everything, it would have been overwhelming.
Would have been. Can you imagine?
An honest sportsman to the end, that Tim Corbin. It's so I'm so embarrassed for you,
cringe
Joe.
worthy,
I'm so
man.
embarrassed for you, man. It's terrible.
Hopefully we get that corrected at some point today. Although, not holding my hopes very high at this point. It's just the world we live in today. When we come back, we'll be joined by Corey Curtis from News 2. We'll get into the College World Series final with him. Also, couple of Titans questions that are interesting that have been thrown out there over the weekend as well. All that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode live from the Wholesaling Studios, powered by RumbleOn.com here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, hour number 3 of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Elijah Campbell here with you on this Monday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. And as we do every week, we go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and bring in our good friend Corey Curtis from News 2, also the #1 member of the Walter Payton fan club. Corey, how are we doing this morning? What's going on?
I am indeed. I'm good. How are you?
We are doing great. Appreciate you taking time to join us this morning. I don't think there was very much disagreement to your Walter Payton take that you had the other day over the weekend. Pretty good player, that Walter Payton guy.
Well, I did grow up in Chicago.
You did,
and he did play for my youth. But I mean, still, the guy did everything, and he did it on a terrible team for many years. He was absolutely spectacular. In every regard. I mean, I could go all day. And really, for me, one of the biggest thrills of my career was when Jarrett played for the Titans, and I got to know him. And I still know him today. And just getting that connection was special.
Absolutely. I would say so.
All right, I missed the take. Okay, I'm now looking at I just want to make sure you didn't say he was the greatest running back of all time, because then we just have a big argument this whole segment.
He's the greatest player of all time.
Greatest player of all time.
All right. I love there's nothing bad that can be said about Walter Payton as a player.
No, I would hope not. He's pretty good.
I wouldn't necessarily agree with that, but I also like, I like that as an alternative view of the same 3 or 4 guys who get thrown out there all the time. So,
You mean Walter Payton?
no one else has ever been mentioned.
Corey.
No, look, there are guys who can be mentioned for sure, but he has to be in the mix.
Sure. I think it's absolutely the case. So, Corey, I want to get your thoughts on the situation with Vanderbilt this weekend with NC State. They play the game Friday. NC State is shorthanded. As we know, the game gets canceled on Saturday, and Vandy moves on to take on Mississippi State in the College World Series Finals. And lots of interesting reaction over the weekend, anywhere from blaming Tim Corbin for NC State getting tested to burning Vanderbilt shirts all over the place. What have you made of kind of the way this went down over the weekend with Vanderbilt and NC State, and now Vandy heading back to the College World Series Finals?
I felt like the Capitol was being stormed again. It was ridiculous. I mean, it made absolutely – it's a totally misplaced rage and anger. I mean, the reactions that I got on social media, that other people got, and the reaction of those fans is totally misplaced and absurd. I mean, it's absurd. Anybody who knows Tim Corbin, number one, he is a guy of total integrity and the finest college baseball coach in the country and one of the finest leaders of young men you'll ever see. And to question that is, it's insanity. It's absurd. And it's a lot of sour grapes and it's a lot of jealousy. I mean, I know there's a lot of Vol fans I heard from that were really angry, and there's just a lot of jealousy and a lot of angry vitriol. It's a bad situation. There's no way around it. I mean, but I hate saying it, them's the breaks during a pandemic, okay? Yeah, half the team's not vaccinated. It happens. It happens, and it's no one else's fault. And by the way, read the NCAA protocol. It's all right there. It's all right there. So whether you like the rules or not, they're there. They were there before the tournament. They're there right now. I mean, you're howling at the moon, okay? Because what you're saying doesn't make any sense.
Well, read the protocols, but don't forget the fine print that says, and also if Tim Corbin says that you should do something, then you must immediately respond to that. Yeah, it's been pretty amazing, Corey. I'm with you. What about the look, and I honestly completely buy that Vanderbilt didn't want to get here this way. No one would turn this down. No one would stop playing, but they didn't want to get here this way.
No one would want to get there that way, and no one would turn it down. Those are both true statements. Those can absolutely be true statements.
So what if they win it all? We've had the asterisk discussion today.
No. Look, they didn't do anything, okay? They didn't do anything. It's not like Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa in the home run chase, okay? They didn't do anything. They showed up to play. That's it. They did their job. And I don't care if it's Vanderbilt or if it's UC Santa Clara. They showed up to play. The other team couldn't play. That's no one's fault.
Well, that brings up another thing we've been talking about, which is just the Vanderbilt thing. Look, I think you're right. There's just a lot of just misplaced rage, and I understand NC State and its fans being upset about this. Is terrible. I mean, that team.
Well, yeah, it's a horrible break.
But
for a team that's just red hot.
But what about some of the reaction, even from non-NC State fans? And we know how Mississippi State fans feel about Vanderbilt. But
yeah.
Do you think there is a little bit out there of, I don't know, Vanderbilt fatigue, Vanderbilt evil empire narrative?
They're in the World Series for the 5th time in 11 years. They're in the finals for the 4th time in 7 years. There is a lot of jealousy out there, okay? There's absolutely a lot of evil empire. People all resent and want what they don't have. I mean, how many schools have tried to hire away Tim Corbin? Everyone that's had an opening in the last 15 years?
Yeah.
And they couldn't get him, and they're not as good, okay? And every year, Vanderbilt is like Alabama. They get the best pitcher in the country. They get some of the best hitters in the country. And you start the season, and they're ranked in the top 3. It's that simple. And, yeah, people are jealous. People are angry. I mean, shoot, you think Volunteer fans want to hear that Vanderbilt's better at them than anything? No. I mean, it's a school that didn't have a national championship until I think the bowling team won, like the year before the baseball team won. I mean, they hadn't done anything in anything. And now you're looking up at them? That's hard for schools to stomach.
Corey Curtis from News 2 on the line with us, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And Corey, the Stanley Cup final is set. Former Preds captain Shea Weber taking on Tampa Bay and the defending Cup champs. We were one game away from a Barry Trotz and Shea Weber Stanley Cup final. What do you think of this matchup between Tampa Bay and Montreal? And how much of a chance do you give old Shea Weber and company in this series?
Well, I mean, Robbie, you can't beat a hot goalie, right?
That is right.
And both teams' goalies are rolling pretty good. I think the first team to 2 each night's going to win. So I think it's going to be a low-scoring series. I think the firepower certainly favors Tampa Bay. But, you like to see great players get their moment. As someone who grew up a Cubs fan and saw a lot of guys not ever get their moment in a championship situation, it's nice to see Shea, win or lose, get to this point, because they deserve to be on the highest stage and to not have that asterisk next to their name that they were a great player but never got to the finals. And so I'm happy for him in that regard.
So for fans, hockey fans in Nashville, you've got the Shea Weber. I mean, I think most people would certainly be rooting for him, but you also have the Corey Perry. That detracts a bit from that. What's the equation there?
Oh, I think Shea. I mean, no matter how much Corey Perry is a dislikable human being, which he is, you pinch your nose and you pull for Shea Weber. I don't think there's any question about that.
Corey, last thing for you here, as the Titans are a few weeks away from training camp, some interesting position battles at hand, and Ben Arthur of the Tennesseans come out with an intriguing piece on that, whether it's the wide receiver room, the backup quarterback position, whole lots of interesting battles at cornerback and the secondary as well. What position battle for the Titans intrigues you the most as they head into training camp coming up here in just a few weeks?
Well, you know what? There are two. One, I'm really interested in the backup quarterback role to see if Deshaun Kaiser can nab that away from Logan Woodside or not. And I feel sorry for Logan Woodside. All he's ever done is what people ask him to do, and everybody keeps rooting for him to lose his job each year. And I'm not necessarily doing that, but I just think Kaiser has higher ceiling, higher upside, and I want to see if he can elevate his game enough to take that job away. And then the kicking game, because regardless of how the Titans have seemed to have handled it for the last couple of years, the kicking game is important. It does decide games. So I don't even know if their kicker's on the roster right now or not, but I'm intrigued to see who ends up kicking against the Cardinals on opening day.
Corey Curtis from News 2 has been our guest here on Robby and Rexrode. Joins us every week on Mondays at 8 o'clock. Corey, great stuff, man. Hope you have a great holiday weekend coming up.
All right, pull that tape of Walter running for 275 against the Vikings.
That's right.
Sweetness.
That. That's right, baby.
Hey, Billy Sims is pretty good
Jackson
too, buddy.
Leading the way at guard.
Oh, nice.
All that great quarterback play from the Bears as well.
Bob Avellini.
Yes.
Vince Evans.
Mike Phipps.
That's right.
Rusty Lish.
A blast from the past.
Greg Landry.
Corey's got them all down.
Mike Tomczak. Steve Fuller. We can keep going.
I see him in my sleep, guys. What's a nightmare?
That does sound like a nightmare. Corey, appreciate you, brother.
All right, go Lions.
Wow. Walk-off moment from Corey Curtis there.
Don't mess with Eric Hipple.
That's right. When we come back, we will keep it on the Titans. Get your thoughts. What is the most interesting position battle for the Titans heading into training camp? We'll get to that coming up next. Right now, though, got to tell you about my friends at the FanDuel Sportsbook, and we've all had that dream, right? It's a tie game. Bottom of the ninth, the bases are loaded, and on FanDuel Sportsbook, you get more than one shot to swing for the fences because FanDuel is letting you place your first bet risk-free That's right, new users get up to $1,000 back in site credit if your first bet doesn't win, and it only gets better from there. Check out FanDuel's new promo live every Tuesday, $5 Dinger Tuesdays. Place a $25 or more wager on any player to hit a home run on Tuesday and get $5 in bonus in site credit for every home run hit in the game, a max of $25. That's one of the many reasons I love FanDuel Sportsbook. It's America's #1 sportsbook. The app is simple to use. They've got great odds on all different betting markets, fun bet types like the same game parlay, and always-on promotions to let you get more action out of every game day. And when you win, FanDuel pays you your winnings in as little as 24 hours. So just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app and sign up with promo code ROB to get in on the action. That's FanDuel Sportsbook, promo code ROB. You must be 21 or older and present in Tennessee. First online real money wager only for risk-free bet. Refund and bonus issued as non-withdrawable site credit that expires in 7 days. A max bonus of $25 per game. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Got a gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line at 1-800-889-9789.
Well, you know what? There are two. One, I'm really interested in the backup quarterback role to see if Deshaun Kaiser can nab that away from Logan Woodside or not. And I feel sorry for Logan Woodside. All he's ever done is what people ask him to do, and everybody keeps rooting for him to lose his job each year. And I'm not necessarily doing that, but I just think Kaiser has higher ceiling, higher upside, and I want to see if he can elevate his game enough to take that job away. And then the kicking game, because regardless of how the Titans have seemed to have handled it for the last couple of years, the kicking game is important. It does decide games. So I don't even know if their kicker's on the roster right now or not, but I'm intrigued to see who ends up kicking against the Cardinals on opening day.
That was Corey Curtis from News 2 on with us in the last segment, discussing the position battles for the Titans heading into training camp coming up here in just a few weeks. Right, welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Joe, Ben Arthur from the Tennessean, new beat writer for the Tennessean for the Titans, has come out with a roster projection for the team coming up. Here's who's going to make the cut, and here who won't. There are a lot of interesting positions here for the Titans. I'm not going to sit here and read off everything that Ben Arthur has wrote, but two of the ones that stand out to me are at quarterback and in the wide receiver room as well. We've talked a lot about the receiver room. Let's start with the quarterbacks here. You've got Tannehill is going to be your starter, and then Deshaun Kaiser and Logan Woodside are battling for the backup position. We've had TD come on here and say that it's going to be Deshaun Kaiser's job for the backup. You've seen a little bit of Deshaun Kaiser and Logan Woodside throw at the OTAs and at the minicamp as well. How do you kind of evaluate where the Titans are right now at the backup quarterback position? And as you sit here today, who do you think has the edge right now at backup quarterback? Is it Deshaun Kaiser or is it Logan Woodside?
I would tend to – well, I mean, I certainly get and respect what TD is saying there, and I would agree with Corey too. And I think I've said similar things. Like I think Kaiser probably has a little bit higher ceiling as a player. I would say, though, based on what I've seen, I would put Logan Woodside still ahead of him right now. And that's even just in, like, reps that they've gotten when we've been able to watch them. I would put Logan Woodside 2 and Deshaun Kaiser 3, but also expect a good battle. I don't think this is going to be Deshaun Kaiser just leaving Logan Woodside in the dust. Again, last year we thought Trevor Siemian was going to come in and, all right, thanks for playing Logan Woodside. Yeah. And it didn't play out that way. Now, a lot of that, I guess, that was maybe more like Siemian being bad than anything else, but, Woodside was better than him. Woodside's really improved and progressed, and I don't know what his ceiling is, really, but I would say, again, with that battle, regardless of who it is, to remind everyone, like, there's a massive gap between the one and whoever is the two. So it's an important battle.
Yes.
But
that your hope does not become important ever this year if you're the Titans.
Right. Now, could I make the case or buy into the case that, like, if Kaiser wins it, and you have a couple weeks where Tannehill's hurt, that maybe like Kaiser might give you a little bit more of an opportunity to win a game? Yeah, I mean, I could buy that. I think he has more talent than Logan Woodside, but right now, I mean, Logan Woodside's hanging in there, and that'll be a good battle. I agree that kicker's a huge one for sure. And the receiver room, you're right. I mean, the receiver room is very interesting, and there's a lot there that there's a lot of cases to be made. Gosh, we had TD on last week, and he's like, he had
Mason Kinsey.
I'm talking with TD. I will say, hey, Mason Kinsey, he is absolutely that guy, that slot guy. He is that diminutive, quick-footed, reliable slot guy. If you want one, do I think he'll make the team? No, but he's right. I mean, there are a lot of intriguing guys at the back end of that room.
Yeah, I mean, Ben Arthur from the Tennesseans got the Titans keeping 6 guys at wide receiver, and we typically see 5 or 6 teams try to, kind of fluctuate between those two numbers. One of the guys that doesn't make the cut for Ben Arthur's projection is Cam Batson and Racing McMath, both not in there in terms of the bottom half of that receiving room. That means Westbrook Akina is in, Marcus Johnson in there as well. Like, everybody talks about the top 3 being set, and I agree. I would go farther than that. I think 4 of the receiving room spots are set. Like, Des Fitzpatrick's making the team.
Yes.
You took him in the 4th round. You traded up to get him. He's making the team.
He'd have to really bomb out, and he's not. I think he looks good out there.
So 4 guys, 4 spots are spoken for. So you've got 9 guys fighting for 2 spots at this point. That's going to be a heck of a battle, that training camp.
Yes, and although I will forever be known as the Nick Westbrook Akina beat writer,
yes,
I will say that him not being available through all this stuff doesn't help him. I mean, I think that is something some of these other guys have gotten reps. I mean, Batson's going to be a real hard guy for them to cut. He's just a pro. He's a great presence in the locker room. He's a playmaker, and he does. It's funny, they need like the small, quick guy a little bit now that they've just got a bunch of giants out there. But I will say, too, Racing McMath, I would put him in. I would disagree with Ben on Marcus Johnson, who it's an interesting take, and it's a good observation by him too here in his short time on the beat, is Marcus Johnson has been out there making plays, and they're impressed with him, and they like him. There's no doubt about it. But I would put in I would agree on Batson. I think it's going to be hard, but I just suspect he's out because I think Racey McMath is going to be in. I have been really impressed with him. He's huge. He runs well. He's caught everything that I've seen. And you're watching that, and you really are like anywhere but LSU or whatever. I mean, okay, Alabama too. Anywhere but like a couple places. That dude probably has like a big season last year in college football, and we think of him differently. But that's where you are on that depth chart. And man, I'm telling you, that guy has got ability. So if he is, once they really get into the kicking game stuff in camp with pads, if he's who they thought he was when they drafted him there, I think he's going to make the team. So someone's out.
I know.
Yeah.
Like, you're not keeping 7 wide receivers.
I would not think so.
So the 6, I think 6 is probably the right number for this team. 6 guys with at least 2 of those guys, probably 3, going to have to play a pretty big role on special teams.
And that's a Westbrook-Akina thing too, for sure. So, yes, no doubt. I mean, and that's where a guy like Batson, loses out a little bit because he doesn't have as much value in various aspects of the game.
Let's go to our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Got a texter that says, you don't cut a guy named Racing McMath. I mean, come on. It's a great name. All-name team, Racing McMath.
Oh, I'd agree. If that's any kind of factor, I mean, he's got to be in there. And then you've got another, 81, who's big and fast. So, great name. No, listen, to me, he's one of the people who stood out the most. Just watching him go through that, it's like, golly, that does not look like a guy who barely produced at the college level.
Let me ask you about it. An interesting guy to me, and I think an interesting guy here locally too, especially if you're a Vanderbilt fan. I don't think he's gotten much of a shot to make the team, but he has gotten through the offseason and stuck around at this point, and that is Kalijah Lipscomb at wide receiver. He is in camp. He's in the mix for the Titans. Again, I think he's well down the list. I mean, you've got Chester Rogers. You've got Cody Hollister, Fred Brown, Mason Kinsey in the mix as well, Cam Batson, Racing McMath. I mean, I think Kalijah Lipscomb is significantly down that list. I thought, though, like when he was in college, he could be a pretty good receiver at the NFL level. What do you think of Kalijah Lipscomb, and what do you think the Titans could have there? They obviously like something at this point.
No, I mean, I liked him in college. Absolutely. He's a good college player. I thought he had a chance in the NFL. I just honestly see, I think when you look at the Titans and before Julio Jones, certainly we were all like, who's going to be in the receiver room? Who's going to play? What's the depth chart? And any receiver would look at that and say, that seems like a good opportunity. Well, now it just looks different. Obviously, Julio Jones bumps everyone down a spot. But even at the back end, when you bring in McMath and Fitzpatrick in the draft, and then you still have those guys, again, Westbrook-Akina, whether people like it or not, he's thought of more highly in the building than on the outside of the building. I think he could be in other places that would give him more opportunity than the Titans will. So at this point, I'd be surprised if he makes a strong bid to make the team, but you can't rule anything out. I mean, every training camp has surprise stories, and he is good. I mean, he's a good player. He was hurt a little bit, during the spring stuff, but then he came back at the end, and I thought he looked fine out there.
Coming up next, we'll continue the conversation on the position group battles for the Titans heading into training camp. What is the most intriguing battle in your mind for the Titans heading into training camp? Let us know on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. We'll also address the tight end position coming up next as well. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. ESPN 94.9 is the home for Nashville Sounds baseball. Tomorrow the Sounds begin another 6-game homestand at First Horizon Park, taking on the Louisville Bats, the AAA affiliate of the Cincinnati Reds. Nashville Sounds baseball on ESPN 94.9, presented by Farm Bureau Health Plans and by 312 Pizza Company. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game, streaming live on Periscope, on YouTube, and on Twitch as well at 102.5 The Game. Right now, taking your thoughts on Titans position battles heading into training camp. What is the most intriguing position battle to you? Let us know on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Got a texter that says, I'm really interested in the backup quarterback battle. The Titans were fortunate not to need to turn the second-string quarterback last season. So they've been fortunate in that area ever since Tannehill has taken over. He has been healthy from start to finish for the most part. Since he's come in, he's been able to play in every game, and they've not had to worry about backup quarterback since that time. I would imagine like at some point in his career here with the Titans, the backup quarterback's going to have to get in there for a few games. That is a position where I do wonder how you view Deshaun Kaiser and Logan Woodside. We did see Logan Woodside throw a pass last year, by the way, and it was beautiful. It was right on the money on the fake punt.
It was.
So he's 1 for 1 in my book. So maybe we're underestimating Logan Woodside here on the show. As Corey said, there's a lot of people that seem to just be wanting to take Logan Woodside's job all the time.
Yeah, and he keeps turning them away.
Keeps turning them away.
And look, I mean, and this is like a Darren McFarland long-term, rallying cry. Like, you got to be better at backup quarterback. They did. I mean, they John Robinson went from Castle to Gabbert, which was an upgrade. Still wasn't good enough. And then he did a really nice job upgrading backup quarterback when he got Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah.
There you go.
Even Marcus, he was a great backup quarterback.
Well, he did turn into a great backup quarterback.
He did. They even had a package for him.
That's right. I
thought he did a good job in those.
Yeah, I can tell you're being very serious.
I thought he did a good job.
Yeah.
You keep asking me to say something nice about Mariota. There you go. I thought he did a great job when they handed in the backup quarterback role.
I'm not asking you to say anything. I prefer you just continue to just spew hate about Marcus Mariota till the end of time.
Marcus Mariota is a great person.
Once he brings the Raiders that Lombardi, you can find a reason that
Elijah, am I wrong? I thought he did a great job at the backup quarterback position.
Hey, he's no Charlie Whitehurst, but
that's true.
He did pretty well.
Kind of looks like Charlie Whitehurst.
Clipboard holder.
Would you take Mariota right now as a backup?
Oh,
sure.
Of course. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
That'd be a clear upgrade, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Charlie Whitehurst.
But that's the thing. It's like there's very few people who can play quarterback well in the world. So most teams don't have a good backup quarterback. And in fact, if you go down the list, there's like 3 or 4 names you'd be like, wait, huh? Who is this? I need to find this. I need to find the full list of number 2 QBs in the league. So it'd be great for the Titans to upgrade that, but again, you have to sacrifice here and here and here if you're gonna go for it here and here and here. And
do you know who the backup quarterback was last year for the Green Bay Packers?
I think we've talked about this.
It was Tim Boyle.
Tim Boyle. See, there you go. See, that's beautiful.
Who I believe is now the backup for the Detroit Lions. So there you go.
Well, now finally the power has shifted in
Yes.
the NFC North.
That's right, Tim Boyle switching allegiances in the NFC North. Let's go back to the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Ben texting in. An area that has a clear battle is its starting right tackle. Radon still needs developing, and how quickly he progresses could determine who starts there. So, Ben, the battle at right tackle, the most intriguing to him heading into training camp. That's a good one.
It's a very good one because we're talking backup quarterback. Well, guess what? If Tannehill gets hurt, you're probably hosed. We're talking back into the receiver room. Yeah, it's important. It's interesting. There's going to be someone good cut. But right tackle is, that's where you're talking about if you are good there, if you're just solid at right tackle with everything else across the board there. And I would also add if Ben Jones can stay healthy because he's getting up there.
Yep.
But you got Lawan back, and I don't have any doubts about Lawan bouncing back from the ACL, being in great shape, being a great player when he's out there. You got a chance to have a special offensive line, which is a bigger part of the whole thing than we probably give credit for, but that's typical for offensive linemen. The big uglies don't get enough attention. But yes, I agree. I think it's really important. You invested a second-round pick. I really do. I think that it's really important, one, for John Robinson, but more importantly, I think for the team this year to have Dylan Rayduns really pushing for that job in camp, and even if he doesn't win it from Kendall Lamb right away, being on his heels this year. So, one, then you feel like you've got depth if you get someone hurt. And two, you invested a second-round pick in him. And so if he is what you thought he was when you drafted him in the second round, then think about how good that offensive line could be by midseason.
If he works out, I mean, all of a sudden, you've got some pretty good depth at tackle, right? I mean, you've got Rayduns in there, Kendall Lamb, who you just signed, Tyson Brilo in there, Quesenberry's still there.
Yeah,
those last two I brought up, two guys that played for you last year, and you played against Lamb, who scored a touchdown on you, by the way.
He did.
In a game where everybody scored a touchdown for the Cleveland Browns. But the point is, you've got a lot of guys that can play that position if injuries come up again. So if you can get something out of Rayduns early, you got a lot of depth at that position. Now, that may mean maybe you've got to make some decisions as well come training camp.
That's true, right. I mean, a guy like Quesenberry is battling for a job, in camp, I would say, for sure. It's good to have depth. They just aren't going to have it at various spots, but they've got it there. Now, could Rayduns, also possibly be a depth guy moving around inside and stuff like that? There's been some talk of that, but to me, you got him to be focused on winning that job and being the right tackle for the Tennessee Titans for the next few years. That should be the sole focus, and that would be big because Nate Davis right now is I think he's coming into his own as a really, really good player. We know the left side, how good that can be when those guys are healthy. So you add that to everything else with the offense. And again, I say to you, Todd Downing, 40 points a game. Come on. I just upgraded to 40 points a game.
Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Got a texter that says, Dennis Kelly is still unsigned. The Titans could get him for cheap. And he's still out there. I would find that to be unlikely at this point, but he's still out there.
I mean, they've moved on. They're paying a whole bunch of other tackles. So I mean, that's again, we just laid it out there. Like they have more than enough tackles. So I mean, they've moved on from Dennis Kelly. I'd like to see him get a job. Speaking of that, and I was just actually talking about this the other day with young Brennan, who's still begging for season tickets. Kenny Vaccaro still out there?
Yeah.
That surprises the heck out of me. Like that no one would see it worthwhile to give him like $2 million, $3 million.
Maybe he's holding out.
Yeah,
he's
maybe.
Looking for a bigger payday.
Yeah.
I don't know. But, yeah, I mean, he is 30. He's played pretty well the last couple of years.
He's 30, and, no one in that secondary looked great last year. I mean, this is what happens when you have to cover guys for 19 seconds in a row. But I still feel like he's got some pretty good football in him.
Got a texter on the text line that says Rashaan Evans versus Monty Rice in the position battle.
Yeah, I don't know that I really buy that. Look, I'm open. I'm keeping an open mind on it. Like if Monty Rice comes in hair on fire and he's just all over it, then maybe that can become a battle. I would expect that to be pretty clearly Evans as the one.
I agree.
But it's worth mentioning. I mean, it's worth mentioning because obviously we know.
They did take him in the third round.
They did. Now, I mean, it reads more like a next year when we don't have Rashaan Evans pick. But still, you're right. They invested a high pick in him. And, look, I thought he looked good in the spring. And that the limited things that you can tell, he seemed to know what was going on, running around well, making plays. And, some guys have a knack for – some things on the field. Like I would say that Rashaan Evans is absolutely a better athlete than Monty Rice, but some guys have a knack and have a feel for that spot, and they're great with the green dot and all those things, and you can come in as a rookie and impress that way. So maybe that would become one. If it does, it's a bad sign for Rashaan Evans and or good sign for Monty Rice. But look, if you're a Titans fan, I mean, you want Monty Rice to also, just like Rayduns, he's going to be in there moving forward. That's the plan.
Real quickly, we've talked a lot about the tight end position. We know that Ferkser and Swain are going to be in there. They're going to be a part of this tight end room. It's interesting after that. You've got Miller Forrestall in the mix, Jared Pinkney in the mix, Tommy Hudson, Briley Moore. Probably only keeping 4 would be my guess. How do you think this shakes out as the roster currently stands? I still feel like you're probably going out and getting another tight end at some point, but let's say they don't. Let's say this is the room they're rolling with. How do you think this tight end room shakes out beyond Ferkser and Swaim at this point? A lot of love for Tommy Hudson out there.
Is there?
Oh, yeah.
Who's giving the love to Tommy
Ben
Hudson?
Arthur giving some love for Tommy Hudson. Beauclair was giving love to Tommy Hudson last week.
Yeah, I mean,
He's a popular name.
Well, Tommy Hudson is one of those guys that gets overlooked because he's already been here and he got cut, and so I mean, like, there's a little bit of like, okay, we've seen that guy. What else do you have? I would say that if Tommy Hudson beats out all those guys, then that probably to me signals it's really important to go get someone because saw Tommy Hudson in camp and. I mean, he's working hard. He's fine. He's a body in there. I mean, all those guys have shown something to me. I mean, I think Forrestall looks like a good all-around tight end. Bradley Moore to me looks more like not quite Ferkser, but a little bit more like that. Like he produced at Kansas State. He could probably afford to put on some weight. And Pinckney, it's hard for me to tell. And TD said that, he kind of stood out to him. I didn't honestly watch a ton of him in minicamp, but at least he was in there. I think Pinckney's got talent. I mean, I think Pinckney is good enough to be on an NFL roster.
I do too. I would like to at some point, and look, maybe something happened that we just don't know about. I would like some point to get to the bottom of why he wasn't there for OTAs. It just on the surface, and I always hesitate for this because there are things that happen in people's lives that we just don't know about, and you have to keep that in mind in this discussion. But on the surface, it seems strange that he wouldn't be there.
No, I agree. And that's one of those things that, yeah, there may have been something. Maybe we'll get to ask him during camp. But I would also still say to that, if he comes out and outperforms everybody, then it'll be forgotten eventually. But he's interesting. I mean, they really need a guy or two to emerge there. If right now, I don't know. I don't know what it would be. I really have no idea. I think there's another name that we don't know right now.
It's probably my guess, too. Somebody coming in from the outside. Maybe it's Delaney Walker.
I mean, well, there you go. He was
looking good at tight end university.
Yes, he did. That's the thing for people talking about, hey, Dennis Kelly's out there, whoever's still out there. I mean, extra money, I think some of it is set aside for that potential move.
Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Henry texting in. Most intriguing battle heading into camp, Kaharski versus Vrabel.
Ooh, okay.
What about Joe Restaurant versus Vrabel? I think Vrabel should be in a pretty decent move to begin training camp, right?
What is it? Double kicker, double reverse? What was
Brett Kern double reverse.
Yeah, Brett Kern double reverse. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I would think that Vrabel would be in a good mood. He's got a good team.
Yeah.
I mean, Kaharski will be his as always Arasa Paul, as I'm now going to call him, Arasa Paul.
Okay.
So I don't know, but I will miss if we are off Zoom. If we're all for the most part, I won't miss it. I
was about to say,
but the Zoom chats where you can. I mean, I love ripping on Kaharski in there, big time. I love ripping. Like Jared gets in there.
I will certainly miss Robot Terry McCormick. That's for sure.
You got Robot Terry. You got Robot Jim.
Yep.
I mean, like whenever Stillman asks the questions, I always put in there the Pro Football Writers Association has said you're not allowed to ask any more questions. You are banned for the next month. Jared never responds to this, but then every once in a while, Vrabel will get in there and call me a clown, for example. I mean, so we got potential for some spicy camp here, but no, the Zoom chats, it's just a different kind of thing. Like in the midst of a regular press conference, you can't do that stuff. You can't rip each other while the presser's going on.
No, you can't.
So that we will kind of miss.
Maybe
that.
You could just start a group text in the whole thing.
Yeah, it's just not the same.
It's not. You're right.
Because the Zoom chat, everyone is forced to read it.
That's right.
You can't get away from it.
Not the case. Through the group text.
Can't wait to see you again, Arasa Paul.
Maybe the most intriguing position battle heading into Titans training camp. When we come back, NBA Conference Finals well underway at this point, and some separation starting to take place. We'll get into that coming up next, including maybe some coaching news that affects a local team here as well. All that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Elijah Campbell here with you on this Monday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. The NBA Conference Finals well underway. The Phoenix Suns, a 3-1 series lead against the LA Clippers. The LA Clippers have been without Kawhi Leonard so far in this series. He's expected to miss Game 5 as well. Milwaukee taking a 2-1 lead in the Eastern Conference Finals last night. A 113-102 win against the Atlanta Hawks. Chris Middleton goes off. Giannis plays well as well. And right now, things looking good for the Milwaukee Bucks, the Milwaukee Bucks and the Phoenix Suns.
The Bucks and the Bucks.
You need to clip that one. That was good.
That's gold.
Joe
That's
Restaurant
fantastic.
approves.
Milwaukee Butts.
Joe Restaurant
Smoking
starting
butts.
forward.
You could smoke some butts, yeah.
Joe Restaurant starting forward for the Milwaukee Bucks.
There we go. Nice.
That's a good one.
Yeah. But they are looking good.
I've had some worse ones here on the show. We'll leave those off.
It happens.
It happens every now and then. We talk 4 hours per day. Let's start with your thoughts on the Phoenix Suns. Chris Paul back in the mix. Devin Booker scoring points while wearing masks out there with kind of looks like a horror movie star. Being able to see, he says, all I need to be able to see is the basket. I don't need no depth perception. It's overrated. Devin Booker playing well. Suns up 3-1 in that series. Are the Clippers done? We've seen the Clippers come back and win 4 in a row against the Utah Jazz. Are they officially done at this point against the Suns? They feel done to me.
Yeah, it's pretty close, man. I mean, I think Kawhi was your, it's a different series.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. And maybe Phoenix still wins, but just seems like too much to overcome. You agree, Elijah?
I think so too. And the Suns are playing just dangerously confident right now. The only option the Clippers have to be able to win a lot of these games is shoot the lights out. And they were the top 3 3-point shooting team in the NBA all year. And when the Suns have kind of figured you out to run you off the 3-point line like they did on Saturday night, it's going to be hard. I mean, you can't score 80 points and beat the Phoenix Suns. I mean, the Suns didn't even play their best game offensively, and they were still able to take advantage of them. Like this Suns team is just playing dangerously confident right now, and if there's no Kawhi Leonard, they don't have enough defensive depth, and they're just going to have to bank on hitting 23s in a game. And that might happen once. I don't think it's going to happen, the 3 times needed to win the series.
Well, you better make your shots, too, if you're the Clippers, because if not, apparently DeAndre Ayton's going to get every rebound out there.
Oh,
he got 22 in the last game.
Yeah.
He's been awesome. This is the best basketball he's ever played in his career. He's been fantastic.
A nice 15-14 fourth quarter in that game. Very much a throwback to 1998. So,
Chris in Nashville on the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Do you guys think Doc Rivers is overrated? The 76ers out. Doc Rivers out once again in the second round. My very short answer to that is yes, I think Doc Rivers is overrated.
Well,
he's a good coach.
How was he rated?
He's rated as one of the top coaches in the game, and I think he's a tier below.
I'd say he's top 10. I still think he's a fantastic
Right, the top
coach.
10, he's rated as like, there's a lot of people view him top 5, top
I just
3,
think a lot of his struggles or his shortcomings in the last couple of years, I don't think have really been his fault. I don't think his game plan's ever been that bad. I think the stuff he runs is always pretty good. Like, he's had a lot of really bad luck in his career. Like, I guess it wasn't his fault Paul George forgot how to play basketball for a week and a half in the bubble last year.
That was amazing.
Or that Ben Simmons has decided that he isn't confident dunking the ball.
Or he's allergic to the rim. Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of really, really bad luck. And that Celtics team doesn't win that title in 2008 without him and Tom Thibodeau game planning how to stop Kobe Bryant and making Pau Gasol beat you. That was one of the better coaching jobs in finals history. It was a really, really good coaching job. He's had his moments, and I think he's just kind of been the whipping post for all the fans of teams that he's coached. Yeah. And he's been an easy scapegoat.
I think he's a good coach. I mean, I remember getting into this last year with the finals with Munson about Doc Rivers and Eric Spoelstra. Like, to me, Eric Spoelstra is a lot better of a coach than Doc Rivers. Like, it's not particularly close. So, like, this idea that Doc Rivers is like a top 3 coach in the game, I just don't buy that.
It's hard because, I mean, look, sometimes coaches get too much credit and blame, both, right? I could argue on the side against Doc Rivers, like, how do you let things get to this with Ben Simmons? Are you not also a psychologist? Are you not also supposed to be, you're not just game planning and doing film, right? Like, you're supposed to be.
From what I've read, they've tried.
Yeah.
And it's a Ben Simmons won't fix himself kind of thing.
Right.
Lead the horse to water.
And I don't doubt that.
Yeah.
I don't doubt that. But then, so it's sort of like, so how much of all this gets put on the coach. Like in hockey, everything gets put on the coach.
He'd already been fired by now.
Exactly. Then you just move on to the next coach and get a new voice in the room. I think Doug Rivers is thank you. I think he's a very good coach. I mean, I would tend to agree that maybe some people have gone overboard. But I think maybe he's getting a little bit too much blame, and a lot of that sentiment, in the last couple of years. And to your point, some of it really is out of his hands. Speaking of coaches.
I was about to say, speaking of coaching, the Memphis Tigers may be about to lose their coach. Current Memphis coach Penny Hardaway emerging as a serious candidate for the Orlando Magic coaching job. Now, we know Penny played for Orlando. There's obviously a connection there, and if the Magic were to hire Penny Hardaway, I think that would go over very well with their fan base. I don't know how successful he would be in Orlando and don't know how successful he would be as an NBA head coach, but apparently this is a very serious thing that has a good chance of happening, and the Memphis Tigers could be without a coach very soon.
Does Penny think that it's supposed to be just like the playing career, like it's a couple years and then you move on to you're from Memphis to the Orlando Magic?
Went from AAU to Memphis to now the NBA.
I would feel so bad for Memphis if this happened. And look, I don't know like where things would go with Penny, but he's got more guys coming in. He's recruited really well, and there was so much excitement and energy around that change, and they needed to make a change. From Tubby Smith, and there's an immediate injection of energy and enthusiasm. I would feel bad for Memphis fans if they lose him this quickly before really seeing what he can do. I mean, I think he had a chance when the 1 year that he would have had James Wiseman, that team could have been special. He put together a heck of a team. And I also just don't really if you're the Orlando Magic, what is compelling you? I mean,
because it's Penny Hardaway.
I think the jury's still out on Penny Hardaway as a coach.
I understand, but that's what's compelling them is it's Penny Hardaway. He was a great player for the Magic, and it would be a home run hire for the fan base. Like that to me is what it is.
How many great players have come back to coach that franchise and it went well? I mean, not many have even done it, but I think of Magic Johnson did not work well.
Patrick Ewing.
Gosh, that's
they worked
right.
very well. Yeah.
But that's the
I
way
totally
things
forgot about that one.
That
but that's the way things are going right
ago.
now. Like former players, like Chauncey Billups just got a head coaching job.
Right.
I mean, Jason Kidd just got a job again with the Mavericks, which is just unbelievable that he keeps getting these jobs.
And I guess that technically would actually apply.
Yeah, it does apply.
He played for them.
Yep.
Well, there's a lot of players who get into coaching, but not many where it's
Going
bring
back to,
home the and superstar players.
Sure.
I guess Billups. I mean, Kidd definitely would have played. Yeah, Billups would count in that, just in terms of. But coming back home to coach, it so rarely is going to work. But it sounds like it's serious. Our Shams Charania is saying it's serious, so I believe him. And that would just stink for Memphis. I don't know. Are Memphis fans way less enthused about Penny now, based on what they've seen so far?
Probably.
Yeah,
Probably a little bit.
Think so?
Yeah. I would
What
hate
do you
it.
think?
I would hate to see it just from the I need Tennessee and Memphis to play every year, and I need Penny Hardaway and Rick Barnes yelling at each other.
I know.
Every year. It'd be awesome.
But we haven't got the commitment from Rick Barnes that he was going to play them anyway, so maybe at least we get the game now.
Yeah, maybe so.
What do you think about Penny's job at Memphis, Elijah, so far?
It's just hard to tell. I mean, his best player is out after 3 games his first year, and then you had the COVID year in which they didn't start out really well. I mean, offensively, his teams have been atrocious. I will say that his 2 teams at Memphis offensively have been total eyesores.
3 now.
3, yeah.
Yeah.
Have been, complete, yeah. The one, he didn't have a lot of his players. I think I considered that a throwaway. The ones I judge him on are the last 2, but defensively, he's had top 10 defenses. He is a great defensive coach, and they've been able to really scheme a lot of teams out of games. And if Houston doesn't hit a 3/4 court shot at the buzzer, they're probably in the NCAA tournament this year. We're not talking about them winning the NIT. So I think it's probably about a C+, B, I would say, as a coach. A little too ambitious, I feel like, if you're the Orlando Magic to try to go out and get him, because I don't know how much he's proved that he could be an NBA coach. Right now, too, it could easily be wrong. He could be, the next Billy Donovan to come out and really run it in the NBA. But it's the jury's still out for me on what he is as a coach. Your team's got to be a lot better offensively if you're going to get me to be enthused as an Orlando Magic fan, if I am one, to have you coaching them.
Especially in today's NBA.
Got to.
You got to be able to shoot.
Got to.
Yeah, and I mean, you're coming into a bad team, and I don't know. I mean, I guess I could see any coach getting sick of the whole recruiting thing, but he's doing it well. He's figured out, how it all works.
It's pretty good at that.
And now you don't get to dictate your roster.
Maybe just doesn't want to deal with all that name, image, likeness stuff. Done with it.
Maybe he's afraid of Rick Barnes.
Maybe so. Maybe he's afraid of Rick Barnes and that mighty Tennessee volunteer basketball team out east.
They should be pretty good this year.
They should be. We'll see what happens on that front. They were supposed to be pretty good last year, too.
They were for a while.
They were.
If the NCAA tournament was played in November, I think we had your national champions in Knoxville.
They'd have been in good shape. When we come back, we'll get back into what was a wild weekend for the Vanderbilt Commodores. We'll recap it all next. Look ahead to the College World Series Finals starting tonight as well. All that coming up. This is Robby and Rexrode live from the Wholesaling Studios, powered by RumbleOn.com here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in. Final hour of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Elijah Campbell here with you on this Monday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Going to have Max Hurst, our good buddy, drop by at 9:30. We'll get into the matchup between Vanderbilt and Mississippi State with him coming up later this hour at 9:30. But first, Joe, let's talk about how we got to this point. What a wild weekend it was for the Vandy boys in this tournament in Omaha, taking on NC State. When we left on Friday morning, didn't know what a weekend we were in store for with Vanderbilt at the College World Series. They took on NC State that day, and I was driving home. I had a couple places I had to stop by after the show on Friday to pick up some things, and I got back in the car, and I heard Darren McFarland of Darren, Donick, and Chase talking on the radio, and he was talking about, he's got a buddy that's a big NC State guy, and he was telling him, hey, congrats to Vandy. And Darren was like, all right, what are you talking about? He said, there's a bunch of guys in the NC State program that have sickness/COVID issues. And the guys on Darren Dodick and Chase were just kind of batting that back around, back and forth. That was the first time that I had heard anything about NC State and a sickness and maybe with some COVID issues as well. And I said, all right, well, that's interesting. We'll see what happens in terms of the game that was supposed to start at 1 o'clock on Friday. It did not start at 1 o'clock on Friday. Kumar Rocker is warming up for the game. It gets pushed back. It gets delayed. Game finally starts at I think about 2:07 on Friday. And you look out in the warm-up and at the national anthem, there are 13 guys available for NC State. They've got 9 position players, one of which is a pitcher, and Sam Highfield, 4 guys in the bullpen as well, 13 players. They played pretty well, I thought, for the most part, given the circumstances. Vandy ultimately gets it done 3-1 in the end. And you thought, okay, well, maybe NC State, the tests come back in. They've got more players that could be available for Saturday's game and a winner-take-all game. We've got our bet about Jack Leiter starting. I mean, things were looking exciting for Saturday. And then in the wee hours of Saturday morning, news comes out that the game's not going to be taking place. NC State's time at the College World Series is done, and Vanderbilt is moving on to the College World Series final. Joe, just quickly, and we'll get to kind of some of the reaction on social media and that we've seen coming out of NC State coming up here in just a few minutes, but just your initial reaction to the craziness that was this weekend between Vanderbilt and NC State and the series ultimately being canceled.
It was wild, man. I mean, and honestly, I will say for me, I think for us, for people who aren't in this world and used to doing this stuff constantly as they all are, I mean, I've kind of just drifted away from even thinking about it much, you know? And now we've already seen, and this is going to intensify, like with the NFL and the push to try to get players to vaccinate, and certain teams have good rates and some teams don't, and that's going to be – so that's been out there, but – you know, the NCAA tournament was a different, like basketball when VCU, for example. That was still a very different time period than things are in this country now because of the vaccine. You know, the AP had a thing out. The AP wrote a story this weekend. So 0.1% of people who are deaths or hospitalizations right now are people who are vaccinated. You know, I mean, it's made a huge difference across the world in terms of lowering this, and it's kind of gone out of mind. But NC State had some stuff that was Monday, which no one noticed at the time. Cliff Avant's talking about guys on his team being sick, and I guess kind of thinking, you know, it's a flu bug or something like that going through the team, and then over the next few days, that turns into a testing situation. I would recommend Kendall Rogers' story for D1Baseball.com. Does a great job covering college baseball. He went through all this with NCAA people, with NC State people, the timeline and how it all broke down. And it's still like the thing when you go through it is still like, okay, so then how does this turn into – I mean, they're just kind of waiting around Saturday night. They all get tested. They're kind of waiting around, and then it's like, yeah, you're out. And I understand the frustration. I totally do. Look, I mean, I think anybody who's been following this is frustrated by this. It sucks. I mean, they were a great story, and you hate to see people work like this forever and ever to get to a certain point, and then it just gets ripped away. But again, I mean, like you have to follow that up to me with if you didn't have a certain number of guys vaccinated on your team, then you had to know that this was a possibility. So as painful as it is, like Vanderbilt, for example, and I don't know the exact number, but Vanderbilt is vaccinated to the point where they weren't getting tested. They did get tested after this, by the way, and all came out fine. And that's one of the things that's been consistent, too, is that the games themselves really haven't been spreaders. But the fact that we're talking about all this stuff is frustrating still now because it's, you know, like you're moving on in a lot of ways, but it's still here, and there's different variants, and the vaccinations are important, and so now you have just a lot of anger, and then it turns into, one, just fake garbage that comes out of some of this stuff, just probably from people who are just upset and want to find someone to blame, and then two, you know, just turns into just a lot of the same discussions that have, at this point, have gone just over and over again, around and around in a circle, that if people are entrenched on one side or the other, they're never going to come out of there anyway.
Well, and that happened all over the place this weekend. I did what I typically do on the weekends, and that is, generally speaking, avoid Twitter as much as possible because it's truly an awful place for the most part. But that's what I did this weekend. But I did see some of the reaction, a lot of it on NC State Twitter about some vitriol being directed towards Tim Corbin and this program, saying it's an asterisk that they've gotten here to begin with. NC State was the hot team coming in to this series. They had played well. We saw Sam Heifel and what he did against Vanderbilt in the week before that in this matchup, and you would think he would probably be the one pitching on Saturday had the game taken place. But also kind of taking a quote from Tim Corbin over the weekend, which he said after the game on Friday, and running with it. And the quote was, quote, "We got a positive outcome, and at this point, I don't care what it looks like. It doesn't matter. We're still here. We're still playing, and that's all that matters." Now, that was taken and run with on NC State Twitter and all over the place yesterday and on Saturday as well. Now, that quote came from Friday after the game, after Tim Corbin had talked about kind of the process of what it was like before the game, getting to that point, and everything heading into what they thought was still going to be a winner-take-all game on Saturday. That did not happen after the game was canceled Saturday. And the positive outcome part of that quote people ran with, saying that that's not a good look from Tim Corbin, all this stuff. It was kind of a wild reaction on Twitter and on social media all weekend to Tim Corbin, and I thought all of it was just ridiculous at this point.
And you know that's going to happen, but then when like media members feed into that, I mean, you got to be better than that. And then, of course, there's just the whole – I mean, actually, I've got it right up. I've got the Kendall Rogers story. I mean, he goes timeline, this hour, this day. I don't see the part where Tim Corbin made all this happen. That must be an omission from the story.
Must be.
The part where Tim Corbin was the one who, hey, you better test those kids.
He's in there with a face shield and gloves on with some – just in there making tests. Come on.
Get in line. Get in line, boys. Let's go.
Or maybe Corbin told him not to report it. He's wielding a lot of power here.
Yeah, he is,
so
apparently.
if he's going to be able to conduct all these tests, sure enough, he can probably silence a reporter.
It was
pretty much
interesting
all-powerful.
logic out there this weekend.
So who hates Corbin more right now, NC State fans or Mississippi State fans?
At the moment, probably NC State fans.
But see, the
Pretty
thing,
close, though.
Yeah,
But Mississippi State fans have hated him for a while.
right, like they actually have. I mean, NC State fans have no reason to be mad at him for anything at all. Like no reason. And at least Mississippi State fans have history.
Sure.
They beat him in Super Regional. Yeah. I mean, Vanderbilt is the thing, the hump to get over right now. And of course they have they are convinced that all of Vanderbilt's players are on double secret scholarship right now for sure. Like scholarship plus, then you get like graduate scholarship and various different meal plans and things like that they don't get at poor 11.7 scholarship Mississippi State.
Christopher on Periscope says, "I'm upset at two things. One, the timing, telling people at 1 a.m., and two, nobody is getting the pedicure."
Okay, well, we've addressed this, so I'll repeat it. And Robby and I agree. And,
I agree.
And frankly, like Porth is overruled. So I'm sorry, but he's overruled. If we get Tim Corbin on the show after this is all over, and he will confirm either way that he was going to start Jack Leiter, or, as I strongly believe, he was going to hold off on Jack Leiter until today regardless. Either way, if he will confirm it, then we will proceed.
We'll proceed.
Heidi, we will come get our feet, or someone
scrubbed.
will. Yeah, scrubbed and clipped and buffed. It'll be beautiful.
It will be. Jack Leiter, that's what I mean, after Vanderbilt won the game Friday, I was like, here we are. One of us is getting a pedicure. Either Jack Leiter's going to start on Saturday or he's not. And then the game did not take place. So I think
that's the real sad thing here.
It really is.
I mean, that's all fine with NC State, but that's the real loser here.
I think Porth was kind of like breathing a sigh of relief because I felt like there was a pretty high chance he was going to back out of this, and now he can play it off as, oh, well, the game just didn't take place. I don't think we should let him out of it that easy. My wife was devastated by the news, by the way. She was really looking forward to me getting a pedicure.
I know. Like, I'm looking forward to her enjoying you getting
yes.
a pedicure.
She will be there. She
that
will
will
be
be
recording.
entertaining.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, some good video, some
yeah.
close-up.
Really nice zoom-in quality there.
Yeah.
Should be good. We'll continue the
In
discussion when we come back. Got some of your thoughts to get to as well on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Vanderbilt advancing to the College World Series final. How did they get there? What do you make of the way they get there? And if they win, should there be an asterisk next to this national title? We'll get to that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Nashville SC fans, join ESPN 94.9 tonight from 7 to 8 p.m. for NSC Backstage, featuring Nashville SC players and coaches. Tonight's special guest will be Nashville SC coach Gary Smith. Watch the show online via 102.5 The Game's Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and at thegamenashville.com. NSC Backstage brought to you by Camarena Tequila, the official tequila of Nashville SC. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game, talking Vanderbilt and their trip to the College World Series Finals. They'll be taking on Mississippi State beginning tonight at 6 o'clock. Let's go to the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Shane from Ashland City texting in. The protocols are in place before games. We all wanted to see the game. Some of us hoped if they did beat Vandy, they'd win the whole thing. But the NCAA has one major job, protect the kids, and I feel that's exactly what they did. We've already seen how fast it spreads. If the NCAA doesn't do something more, kids could get sick along with giving it to other teams. Very proud of the NCAA for making a tough call.
Wow. Very proud of the NCAA.
Those
Did
words
not expect
are
to hear
not
that
uttered
today.
together very often.
Yeah. All right.
But there you go.
Well, the governor of North Carolina wants to fire Mark Emmert and sign this petition so
right.
NC State gets back in the tournament. Maybe you should
Just focus on the first part, and I think you'll be in good shape.
Yeah, you'd get a strong majority, but maybe you should fire Tim Corbin, and then that's the key because he's the one who's keeping them out of the tournament.
Yeah,
somehow.
apparently so.
Well, look, I seriously, I just try to avoid like the whole vaccination discussion and all that. I mean, they're young, healthy, for sure, and I get why people are like, "Gosh, got a whole stadium full of people with no masks next to each other who they're not checked. But again, for anybody wondering that, well, those people are sitting out there. These people are, these are the student athletes who are taking part in this tournament. And there's a total different level legally, for one thing, to always keep in mind in those two groups of people. So, I mean, these things are in place, Now, Tim Corbin was asked yesterday, speaking of vaccinations, about mandating players, which is not what Vanderbilt does, by the way. And I wrote this in my column today, but the university is mandating this. They announced this in May. So, in the fall, if you are a Vanderbilt student, you must be vaccinated, coming in or returning. So that means, like, for example, this fall, when we get into the SEC football weekends, you can just know Vanderbilt's team is vaccinated.
Yep.
It's a student policy, but that is not the case right now. But Vanderbilt, whatever the percentage is, it's very high for this team. But I think that's also true of a lot of teams. I mean, I have no idea how many teams were like NC State that were as low as they were, but I think most were much higher. And that's, I mean, you're opening the door. You are risking something like this.
Well, and a lot of people talked about, Tim Corbin being upset over the weekend in the Friday game. He was probably upset because he had no clue what was going on.
That's
out
exactly
there.
it.
I mean, Kumar Rocker's out there warming up. And again, it's not like Rocker's in the bullpen just like casually tossing. Like, he's firing pitches in there, warming up, getting his arm ready to go. And it's kind of a routine you get into that you got your arm loose, you feel good about your command, you're going in, and to then sit there for another hour, I mean, you got to get warmed up again after that. Those are pitches that at that point are being thrown that are extra. So that's why Tim Corbin was upset. Not much communication on that front to Vanderbilt before the game Friday.
Right, like the dumb Corbin stuff could be just completely made up out of the blue. A lot of stuff is. But if there's any, like someone at NC State saw that he was furious and somehow took that as he's mad and he's going to make sure we all get tested or whatever. No, he was mad because he got no information. He got no information. He had no idea what was going on. His pitcher gets going, and then it's like shut him down. And he's just like everybody else at that point, basically. Like, what is happening? He didn't know. And that's how it works. I mean, that's how it goes. They're not – obviously NC State – is having constant discussions with the NCAA people about this because it's their issue. But, I mean, Tim Corbin, he's talking yesterday in his presser. He gets all these messages on his phone. It's like 1:30 in the morning. He's just like everybody else. Like, what? And then he stays up all night. He and Maggie Corbin just stay up all night. Like, you can't go back to sleep after that.
Yeah.
And you're trying to figure out what you tell your team. I mean, those guys – like, anybody who thinks, like, first of all, if you get to this level of sports, of whatever sport it is, you think anybody wants a free pass to something or doesn't want to play this game, doesn't want to prove that they can beat that team at their very best? I mean, come on. You don't get to where you are if that's how you look at things.
Well, and now the discussion from the NC State type side of things and those that are against Vanderbilt, and now which apparently includes all of America, according to some people in Mississippi, is if Vanderbilt goes on and wins, is this tainted? Like, is this national championship, if Vanderbilt were to win, should there be an asterisk next to it? Because NC State had 13 players on Friday. They had already beaten Vanderbilt with Sam Highfield once. They were the hot team heading into that matchup. What do you think? Now that Vanderbilt has come through and they are going to be in the College World Series Finals, they start tonight against Mississippi State. Do you view this championship any differently if you're a Vanderbilt fan, or certainly if you're an opponent or someone who doesn't want to see Vanderbilt win this championship? How do you think this goes in the grand scheme of things if Vanderbilt is able to pull this off in the next 3 games and win their second consecutive national title?
Well, I'm sure there's going to be some NC State fans who go to their graves believing that Tim Corbin, like, somehow created the situation this weekend. Now, there will be fans, if Vanderbilt wins it, who are like, that doesn't count.
Yep.
Whatever. I mean, the other side of it, if you're a Vanderbilt fan, like, will you enjoy this any less or think any less of it? I mean, I would hope not. If they win 2 games against Mississippi State, you should celebrate it like any other championship. I'm sure along the way, somewhere in their other 2, was there a stroke of good luck in there somewhere? Was someone hurt? I mean, how many championships or non-championships or woulda, coulda moments because someone had a major injury at the worst time. I mean, shoot, I think the Golden State Warriors were going to win it all 2 years ago, and then Klay Thompson tore his ACL. They were making this incredible comeback against the Raptors, and then they were done. So, I don't know. The Raptors are still the champ. They got the title, right?
Yeah.
Still counts. I mean, it's a different situation, but it's bad luck for your opponent. It's not your fault that you're on this side of the bracket, and here's what's in front of you, and now it's not in front of you anymore.
Well, and they've said this, but like Tim Corbin didn't want to go to the final this way. Like,
Hell
he's
no.
like, yeah, let's have them have to forfeit and not be able to play. Like, they didn't want this, and I'm glad somebody brought this up too, because somebody on the text line says, I've seen Twitter saying Vanderbilt should do the right thing and refuse to play until NCAA lets NC State back in.
Yeah.
It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah,
Like,
totally.
No, that's not what you do. It's okay to be upset at the way that this took place, and you feel bad for NC State and all that stuff. You're also just going to be not going to be like, well, okay, we're not going to play now because this wasn't the right way to go about it. It's not Vanderbilt's fault. It's just what happened.
No one would do that. No one should expect anyone to do that. Now, I will say this, that if it's true that, and Kendall Rogers reported this, that Mississippi State would have been awarded the national championship had NC State won on Friday.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that goes contrary to what I believe a lot of this is revolving around, which is you've got some TV inventory here of value. Like, if that's the case, I guess why wouldn't you have pushed things back to I mean, is it that? I mean, I understand Omaha, there's a lot of logistics there that come into play, but wouldn't people like rather see the games? And then if you could take that a step further, could we not have pushed this back on the behalf of NC State in some way?
Maybe. I mean, are you pushing the other series back too? You're just stopping? Everybody's hanging out in Omaha for 5-7 days, whatever it is?
I mean, the difference between this and the other situations like VCU, and although, I mean, Michigan and Notre Dame hockey, I mean, that's a small tournament to start. Rice women's volleyball. So, I mean, you're talking about a team right on the cusp of maybe winning it. That's where this is different from the other tournaments. And,
right.
I mean, look, honestly, if you flipped it around and they said, you know what, we're gonna take our time, push it all back because we don't think a team should have to forfeit at this stage of the tournament, I wouldn't have been mad about it. Vanderbilt fans, I don't know, would they have been mad about it? Maybe, but I mean, I think that's the case to be made. So, but again, that's the NCAA. They've decided to go about it this way. Vanderbilt does what is put in front of them. And now it's Mississippi State.
And that begins tonight at 6 o'clock for Vanderbilt on ESPN2. Kind of an interesting battle coming up for the doors. You've got a team that doesn't strike out a whole lot in Mississippi State and a pitching staff that does strike out a lot of people. I mean, Vanderbilt is second in the nation in strikeouts. The team that's ahead of them is Mississippi State. So you would figure that there may not be a lot of offense in this series, and you're going to have to take advantage. When you have opportunities to score and you've got runners in scoring position, you're going to have to come up with some timely hits in this series because both of these pitching staffs probably not going to give you very much in this series, both on Vanderbilt and Mississippi State.
Yeah, and of course the difficulty is their ace, Will Bednar, went Saturday.
Yep.
6+, almost 100 pitches. You know, and he leads them with 135 strikeouts. Three guys really are the guys who blow people away. Christian McLeod starting tonight, number 2 starter. You know, good. He's got a 4.61 ERA. I mean, you know, 2.44 batting average against. He's not overwhelmingly dominant, but 113, you know, strikeouts in 82 innings. And, of course, you know, Landon Sims, 12 saves, just ridiculous stuff. He's got 96 strikeouts in 53 innings. And certainly you'll see him, but I'm guessing if it got to a Wednesday, it would be Rocker on 4 days rest, which is, I mean, even that, you know, maybe a shorter outing, even if he's going well. But what about Bednar? What would be the situation for him on 3 days rest on Wednesday? So Mississippi State fans are mad about that too. But again, like I would say to them, Leiter was going to be facing you up tonight regardless. They may not believe that. You may not believe that. I believe that.
I disagree. Josh on the text line says, I bet Corbin heard about your bet and tried to manipulate it by getting the game canceled. so no one can start. So maybe we're at fault here for getting the NC State game canceled. Tim Corbin, all the power that he has, he's wielding it, according to Josh, to cancel our bet.
So basically just so that none of our feet are exposed to any other humans?
To the public, yes.
Yeah, it's actually a public health service
nice
that Tim Corbin has done for everyone.
Community service there by Tim Corbin. We appreciate it. When we come back, we'll be joined by Max Hers, our very own Max Hers of the Anchor Down podcast. We'll do that next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Elijah Campbell here with you on this Monday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Looking ahead to the College World Series final between Vanderbilt and Mississippi State. And to help us do that, well, we had Max. We've lost him now on the phone line, so we'll try to get him back into the fold. Max Hers joining us here in just a second from the Anchor Down podcast. Also does great work with the SEC Network as well. Interested to get his takes on what we saw this weekend and to look ahead at the matchup itself. As you look at this Vanderbilt lineup, Joe Rexrode, how do they get those bats going? Still, I think a little bit of a concern. Didn't play quite as well on Friday either as I thought they would heading into that matchup given the circumstances. What do you think about this lineup? How much confidence do you have that this lineup can bounce back and start to hit the ball with a little bit more regularity than we've seen so far in Omaha?
Well, I think they can certainly be better than they've been in Omaha. Obviously, this whole NC State thing, NC State scored all of a run against you a week ago, right? So, I mean, it's been an incredible run for NC State. And, hey, to me, Sam Highfield's the best baseball player in the world based on what I've seen last week. But still, like, Jack Leiter held them to a run, and you couldn't scratch out a run or two to help him out. Like, good for NC State, but also like you've got to be better.
Let's go to our 1025 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in our good friend Max Hers from the Anchor Down podcast and the SEC Network as well. Max, what's going on, brother? How we doing?
Morning, guys.
Appreciate you taking time to join us, Max. Let's start with just your reaction to what we saw over the weekend, a crazy situation between NC State and Vanderbilt, the game being canceled on Saturday after NC State plays with 13 players available to them on Friday. What did you think of how everything went down and now Vanderbilt advancing to the College World Series finals?
Yeah, it's weird to really have anything to say about it just because the whole situation kind of explains itself. And also, I'm not there, and I would be there, and I imagine Joe would probably also be there if the NCAA hadn't told media, don't come.
Yeah.
Cover our event.
True.
Because of COVID. And an entire team ends up getting COVID, and guess what? It wasn't from the media. So it sucks. It's absolutely horrible. This is the worst-case scenario for anybody. It's been 3 months since we've heard about a game being delayed due to health and safety protocols. I honestly forgot what it felt like. It's a helpless feeling, and it sucks for everybody. I'm glad they let NC State play at least one, but yeah, I mean, I don't know if there are really any takes to be had about this. It's a terrible situation that really speaks for itself, I think.
So we've been talking a ton, Max, about the weekend and the ridiculousness and some of the reaction and some stuff that probably shouldn't have had as much oxygen as it did, but it did, and it got to everyone. And just things like this open the door for so much stupidity. But we haven't really talked about like Vanderbilt and how they react to this, if there's any impact. I thought yesterday, and a couple other people mentioned to me, they certainly were not like the normal excited kind of team you might encounter going into, the final series of the College World Series. Now, granted, Zoom press conferences also don't get people excited, and Kamar Rocker, any press conference doesn't get him excited. So, you have to take it all with a grain of salt, but what do you think? Like, how do you think these guys respond on the field to all this stuff tonight?
Well, I think the little hint we get of that is what happened in the game on Friday. And that game was close. That was a really, really close game. And it was, for the most part, a good game, even though NC State really had half their team, which just shows how thin the line is between a win and a loss at any point in college baseball, which is what makes it so great. And we don't usually get to see examples of that in the College World Series. Like this year, we saw North Alabama, who was third to last in the RPI, come to Vandy for a midweek and almost win. Vandy won that game 3-2. We don't really get to see examples of that on the biggest stage until an NC State team loses half their team. They have their ace playing first base, and you're looking at that lineup, you don't even know who's a hitter and who isn't because of how little their bench guys play. So I think that kind of shows you maybe Vandy didn't play their best that game, but also shows you that anybody can win at any time. So I'm with you. The Zoom press conference kind of sucks a lot of the normal life out of it yesterday. And again, they told media not to go, so I'm not there. I don't have a pulse on what exactly the team is like as I normally would, but I think they'll be okay. And I think the big thing, as everybody continues to talk about NC State, that they're forgetting is Mississippi State is Vanderbilt's biggest baseball rival, and to me, it isn't really close. And I think maybe Louisville is second because of the postseason history, and Tennessee, because of how good they were this year and how good that series was, has jumped their way up to third. But Mississippi State has been Vandy's biggest baseball rival for, I would venture to say, probably 5 full years. So that's going to bring out the best of them, just like it did when they played the regular season in April.
So, Max, with that in mind, obviously you're in Omaha now, and all these teams are good. There's great pitching on all these teams that have gotten to this point. But the lineup has been up and down with Vanderbilt so far, and some of the guys that they've relied on all year have not hit the ball quite as well in this tournament. What are you seeing right now from guys like Isaiah Thomas and Carter Young? You can go up and down the list with this Vanderbilt lineup, and how much confidence that you have that maybe a resurgence offensively could take place against Mississippi State beginning tonight?
Yeah, the problem for those two guys especially has been swing and miss, which I've kind of always said, really this season especially, you can't complain about swing and miss because that's everybody's problem right now on offense in college baseball and in Major League Baseball. But yeah, Young hasn't had too many big swings. Thomas got benched. I mean, he's not hurt or anything. He was taken out against a righty starter. They wanted an extra lefty bat in there, but the fact that Vandy has gone to Troy LeNeve and Javi Vaz as regulars at this point would have been a huge surprise 5 or 6 weeks ago, but that's the hot hand they found in the lineup, and that's not something they had to do in 2019. They hadn't had to go searching for a new everyday player, or in this case, two. So I think everyone will get their shot in the final series. I don't know exactly what a Game 1 lineup would look like, but I imagine they go back to Thomas and that it was just one game off.
Yeah, that'll be really interesting. And Vaz has been, he's been a revelation. He's really been a spark for this team, including, those 2 pitches he took that really created the win over Stanford. So, Max, on the pitching front, first of all, we haven't gotten you in on this. Would Jack Leiter have started Saturday, or would Jack Leiter have been rested and been the Game 1 starter against Mississippi State either way?
I initially thought he would have. If anything, I've moved a little bit away from that, but I'll take Robby's side.
You'll take Robby's side. That hurts, man.
Get out of here, Rexrode.
That hurts. All right, we're gonna get down to the bottom of this. Well, okay, so we know now that he's starting. First of all, how big of a deal is it on the bullpen front to not play that game? Again, Vanderbilt wanted to play that game, but you weren't going to have Murphy for that game. You were probably going to really stretch McIlvain and Maldonado in that game. Now you got everybody. And then do you think it would, if they get to a Game 3, Tim Corbin said yesterday with Robby Weinstein's question, confident, about Rocker being there, 4 days rest. Do you think that would be a full, it'd be the last game. It'd be it, like just a full start and go as long as you can go, or some limitations on it?
Well, I think they always have limitations, but I think it would be pretty close to full. The thing about Rocker and Leiter and anyone on this team who's draft eligible this year, which also includes Murphy and Maldonado as a sophomore is draft eligible, these guys are getting picked, and especially under the new minor league format, they're probably not pitching again this year. So I don't think it's the end of the world if there's one extra outing or 20 extra pitches or one extra inning this week. So I think it would definitely be Rocker on Wednesday, but like you said, it was a big break. I think if Leiter did end up pitching Saturday in a game against NC State, they come back on Wednesday, and then really that's the only time you would see Rocker or Leiter again, and maybe it's Rocker starting or Leiter in relief, and now that's all in fantasy land, and we have no idea if it would ever happen. But it's a lot of innings to cover, and all of a sudden you get to the finals, and you don't have those precious off days anymore either.
Max, in a series like this against Mississippi State, how big of a weapon can the speed of Bradfield and Vaz on the base paths be against a team where we talked about it heading into this segment? Is it Mississippi State? They strike out a ton of batters. How big of a deal, if you can get those two guys specifically on the base paths and use their speed, how big of a weapon can that be for Vanderbilt in this series?
Yeah, the way Vandy beat Mississippi State in the regular season, especially in Game 3 of the series, which was a rubber match and Vandy won, they were taking extra bases. They were hitting the balls in the gaps. They were doing station to station, hard 90s, taking 180s, even 270s type of offense. So that's how they beat Mississippi State in the regular season. I think they're going to need to do it again, and they really weren't aggressive, especially in those first couple of games, and that's really the moment amongst all others. And, this entire time I've been thinking, I wish I would have been there. This would have been a great game to report on and have open locker room access, all of that. Just because 2 years ago, after any game, you could go interview any player you wanted and ask them anything. And I'd come away with a podcast with quotes from 10 different players on it after every single game. And I was shocked how not aggressive they were at times, especially with Bradfield. So my question to him would have been, did you have a green light there, you didn't go, or is the green light that you've had most of the season gone? And I haven't heard any definitive answer on that, so I'm fine with them not taking risks, especially early in games, but when he's got a read on the pickoff move, I think they will be a little more aggressive.
Yeah, it's just, small ball, when you're struggling like they are, stuff like that can make such a difference for you. Max, what about the Mississippi State pitching situation? Obviously McLeod tonight, but how do you think it looks? 3 days rest for their ace? Again, it's the same thing. It's like this is it, right? I mean, this is for the whole thing. But my gosh, that's a short period of time.
Yeah, and Bednar was the one who beat Vandy in the regular season, too. That was a Bednar versus Leiter game. Rowdy Jordan hit a leadoff homer. Leiter didn't get into the sixth inning, and Mississippi State won the game. So, I mean, Vandy's seen all these guys once all the way through before, and the same can be said for Mississippi State against Vandy, especially because Chris McIlvain had his longest outing of the season by far against Mississippi State. So someone who's kind of been more of a newer emergence for Vandy as a key arm down the stretch, did pitch against Mississippi State, did pitch against everybody in their lineup twice through. So it'll be interesting to see. But, yeah, I think Mississippi State I think it's almost even. I don't think Mississippi State is at that much more of a disadvantage than Vandy by playing the extra game. And I think if they need Bednar, they'll find a way to get him in.
Max Hers from the Anchor Down podcast, also the SEC Network as well, has been our guest here on Robby and Rexrode. You can check Max out in about 15 minutes or so on Darren, Donick, and Chase as well. Max, appreciate you taking time to join us this morning, brother.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Max Hers from the Anchor Down podcast here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. When we come back, we'll give our final thoughts looking ahead to Game 1 tonight of the College World Series Finals between Vanderbilt and Mississippi State. We'll do that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Final segment of the day. Thanks to Max Hers for joining us in the last segment. So, Rexrode, as you look ahead tonight, we would assume Jack Leiter will be on the mound tonight for Vanderbilt, although Tim Corbin has not confirmed that.
Right, that's right.
He's not going to confirm
that.
It's
not official.
It's not official.
See, Mississippi State's coach, he's all like, oh, yeah, McLeod will be McLeod.
Yeah.
He's kind of like the anti-Corbin.
Yeah.
Hey, don't give him an edge, man.
Don't give him any edge. That's true. What do you think? So you threw it out there. Tim Corbin has expressed confidence that if this series gets to Game 3, I think there's a pretty good chance that it will, that Kumar Rocker could be available, and he's confident that Kumar Rocker could pitch. If that's the case and Game 3 comes around, what's your confidence level in 4 days rest, Kumar Rocker coming in, How close to the Kumar rocker that we normally see do you think he can be on 4 days rest in a winner-take-all for the national title game at that point in Game 3?
Well, I will say, I don't think Rocker really had his best stuff the other day.
Nope.
And they won 3-1. Again, half that lineup is – well, the guy who gave him the most trouble was the pitcher.
So he could not solve Sam Heifel,
Yeah,
for sure.
Sam Heifel's out there just spraying line drives all over the field. But he – early on, I think he struck out 8 of the first 9 batters.
Yeah.
And that curveball, slurve, whatever you want to call it, was just dropping off the table. And then really he lost – it looked like kind of lost control of that. He just didn't have the command that he does a lot with that. And, he's got the fastball. He was able to ramp that up a few times in big moments, but it wasn't his best stuff. So now you go from – and, of course, again, not your best stuff. You're still facing some very good hitters in that lineup, and you did well against them. But now you're going 4 days rest. Obviously, with his size, with his experience, with the way he stepped up in this tournament so many times, you feel pretty confident. I mean, you feel pretty good about having him. You'd like to have like another day of rest, and maybe it limits, the outing to some extent. I don't know, but yeah, if you're Vanderbilt and you get to that, even if you might be looking at Bednar and to some extent, who is definitely their best pitcher, I think you'd feel good about the overall matchup.
I think you do too. 4 days rest coming in there.
Well, yeah, 4 days
nice.
rest. 4 days rest with no tomorrow versus we know. I'm very disappointed that Max is taking the wrong
Team
side,
Robby?
taking the wrong side of history here, but he's young.
Yes, he is. James on the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Heidi is the one who loses out. You promised her a pedicure, so I think you should all get one because of the no contest. You all lost.
That's true.
So James taking a different approach. We've kind of come up with, I think, a solution to this pedicure problem where maybe Tim Corbin can help us out after all this is said and done and tell us who he was going to start. But James taking a different approach, saying we've all lost, therefore we all get one.
Okay, how about this? The point is that Heidi does need to get Heidi needs a free pedicure out of this. I mean, I think that's only fair, right? So if Corbin will answer definitively, then the bet will be dictated by that. If Corbin comes out and says, "Well, I can't tell you, I'm not totally sure," then we all have to get it. But then see, the problem with saying that is then that's probably what he'll do, so that we all have to say it. God,
yeah.
Let's just keep that between us.
I feel like you've set this up for Corbin to come on because you know something and you're just waiting.
I do know something. I told you. I absolutely am quoting a source saying that the plan was not for Jack Leiter.
Well, that's fine, but plan changed. It can change very quickly.
No, I know. Listen, the plan was for Jack Leiter to be pitching tonight just as he is. Can I say 100% that's how it would have turned out? I can't, because you do go by how's a kid feeling, what's a kid saying, what's a kid's parent saying.
Sure.
I mean, you go through that. But, I mean, to me, the difference maker is, again, what is the most and best Jack Leiter you'll get in an attempt to win 4 games, win a national championship, and it was always this.
It turns out the best way to do that is NC State not playing on Saturday.
That helps. That does help. That makes it very easy.
Turns out.
So as long as you push hard and get into those,
If I would have predicted that, you would have had to get 7 pedicures.
Yeah, or something else. What else would be an uncomfortable, public manipulation of your body? I don't know.
Not sure.
Like a weird massage? I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know.
So, now I agree, though. Heidi should not have to lose out here. So, Heidi, one way or another, as long as you show up, Heidi, you'll get your pedicure. Yes.
We'll figure it out. And look, I think Ryan Porth, I know he's on vacation this week. He's not here to answer for himself. But if it turns out that we're in the wrong, meaning Porth and myself, and Corbin comes on and says, "Oh, yeah, I mean, we're not going to start Leiter ever," I will accept the consequences. I'll go get this pedicure. You have my word. I'm not convinced Ryan Porth follows through. I think there could be a little bit of strong arming that we'll have to do at that point.
Well, that'd be very disappointing. We could always throw Elijah in there, right? You throw Elijah in for a quick pedicure.
We're just volunteering Elijah for a pedicure? How do you feel about
Where do you
wanna
come down on
subject-
pedicures?
I don't mind. I've never had one. I've always thought
You don't
I
mind them?
enjoy-
You've never
I
had
wouldn't
He's
mind
already
them. Yeah.
said, he's got some pretty
I'm open to
ticklish
trying.
feet.
I'm open to trying.
He's worried
I
about
just,
kicking someone.
I think whoever does it has to sign a waiver that if you tickle my feet and I kick you in the face on accident on some involuntary reaction, you can't sue me. I think that's the only thing we'll have to do.
Okay.
I think that's reasonable.
All right, that's fine. So we could throw, or also, I mean, I guess Chase could take, but Chase already wanted to be in on this.
Yeah. I think he's kind of just searching for a
I think
pedicure.
Chase really, really wants a pedicure.
Yeah, just go get one, man. Nothing wrong with that.
It's more fun with your friends.
Joe, as you look ahead to this series beginning tonight for Vanderbilt, Game 1 at 6 o'clock, you can check it out on ESPN2. Jack Leiter, we assume, is on the mound. Your key to victory for Vanderbilt in this series against Mississippi State, we've heard it from Max. They've already played once this year, Vanderbilt winning in the rubber match. What's your key to victory for the Doors against Mississippi State?
I mean, I think the key is just that, like, you've got to get more out of your lineup. You've got to – and to me that means, like, you need a couple guys to step up. I wouldn't say everyone is in a funk. You know, Vaz is doing stuff for you.
Yep.
I think Vaz and Bradfield getting on the bases, making things happen, you know, getting those pitchers off their game, get them in the stretch. I think you've got to try to manufacture some runs based on how the collective is swinging the bat right now. But I don't think Vanderbilt's going to win 2 games hitting like this. I think you've got – and maybe Max is right. I think it would be a good move to put Isaiah Thomas back in there. There's a guy who has had so many big hits this year. Maybe a little bit of a break and then come back fresh will do him good if that's the plan.
Well, you've got to get something out of the middle part of that lineup. 3, 4, and 5. I mean, they've not given you much so far in this tournament.
I mean, Keegan's had some moments.
You can throw Carter Young in there too. Like you've got to get something out of the 2-hole as well. So like the middle part of that lineup, they've not gotten a lot from so far in this tournament, and they've got to find a way to fix that. And look, I don't know how fully close to healthy Carter Young is. Like maybe you're just not going to get that from him at this side based on the injuries that he's had to deal with to get to this point. He can now hit from both sides of the plate, but can you hit anywhere near, your full ability? I don't know. I mean, he did have a massive home run so far in this tournament, so maybe he's just in a slump at the moment. But to me, like if you don't get more production out of that middle part of your lineup right there, it's just going to be tough to win.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and I think Carter Young, I mean, look, I think the injury has affected the at-bats, and I think maybe the at-bats have affected the defense. And, look, they're not here if not for what he did in the first game of this whole thing in Omaha. So you got to remember that too. But, yeah, that would be big. Just the top of that order. Bradfield get on, Carter Young make things happen, makes everything easier for everybody. They are not facing the absolute best, at least until Wednesday. But Mississippi State still has a lot of arms, and tonight a really good starter going.
Would help to have another gem from Jack Leiter tonight as well. So we'll see if Vanderbilt can get that done. Tonight, starting at 6 o'clock, ESPN2, Vanderbilt taking on Mississippi State in Game 1 of the College World Series Final. That does it for us today here on Robby and Rexrode. We'll be back 6 a.m. tomorrow. Darren Donica Chase is next. This is ESPN 102.5 The Game.